it helps you become the trendsetter. You know, humankind is set in a way that they will always have a thing for the pioneer of things.
Yeah.
So we see it, if you think about these big corporations we see in Uganda and how they advertise and the different promotions they bring, you will somehow the target market will always have the pioneer front of mind. So for me, creativity, that is how important it is, because you will get the masters, you will be an A-lister on the papers. But if you do not know how to channel, because there is not one company in the arts or in business, as we know it, there's not a company that hires more than 10 people, and all of them are not creative. There is always creativity in a company.
COVID-19 has tested our hope and faith as individuals, families, and the country at large. Besides destroying many aspects of our lives, the novel coronavirus has also affected our human rights in many ways. You and the Law, the COVID edition, is a 30-minute weekly television program that focuses on the impact of COVID-19 on human rights in Uganda. The program engages experts to explain the importance of rights-based approaches to the success of any public health response to ensure the respect, protection, and fulfillment of human rights amidst the challenges presented by COVID-19. You and the Law, the television program, brought to you by Legal Hub Uganda, taking the law to the last mile in proud association with I4C Africa Hub and House of Talent Television.
You know, we're working on a case in Mityana, and this is one of the saddest cases I had ever dealt with, because this woman was pregnant. It just portrays an ordinary Ugandan woman. Very pregnant with twins. She didn't have money for a scan, so she didn't know she had twins. So she time to give birth, she goes to a health center 3. When she reaches there, she produces the first twin. After giving birth to the first twin, the second one was breech. Unfortunately, the health center 3 couldn't give her a C-section. So they give her a referral letter to go to Mityana General Hospital. Mityana General Hospital was 13 kilometers away on a Maram Road. Now just know there are no ambulances. They had to put on a border.
This is You and the Law, the COVID edition, here on House of Talent Television. My name is Jonathan Ochom, your host. As you all know, You and the Law is simply about the law and making it simple for any person in this country. Because as we've always discussed, the law affects every aspect of our lives, so it's only safer that you know about the law. This particular edition of You and the Law is focusing on COVID-19 and how it has affected our human rights. And today, in studio, we're discussing about the right to health. But before we go there, we need to know what does the right to health mean? Who has the duty to fulfill that right? How has COVID-19 affected it? With me is Ms. Rose Wachikona. Rose is the Senior Program Officer at the Center for Health, Human Rights and Development. Rose, you're welcome to You and the Law.
Thank you so much, Jonathan, and thank you for having me here.
How have you been?
I've been good. I've been good. We're attending the Rule of Law Symposium for Uganda Law Society today.
Okay.
And we're discussing this very topic, so it's interesting that I'm carrying it on this show.
That's fine. So, talking about SEHAD, the kind of things that you do, maybe for somebody who could be, hearing about you for the first time, the organization, you could give us a little bit of a sneak peek into what the center does.
SEHAD was started in 2009, and the primary purpose of setting up the organization was to promote the justiciability of the right to health.
Justiciability.
The justiciability,
Some
which
of those words,
enforcement.
Okay.
To make sure that you can enforce. There's a lot of concentration on civil political rights at that time, the right to vote, right to practice your religion, freedom of movement, all those civil political rights, as we would call them, but there's very little emphasis on what we call socio-economic rights, which deal majorly with social security, like the right to food, right to adequate food,
Adequate.
the right to health, the right to clean and healthy environment, some of the right to shelter, all those fall within socio-economic and cultural rights. So we were challenging ourselves to say, are we able, is a human being, a Ugandan, able to enforce a socio-economic right within this country? So the organization was set up in 2009 to ensure that it does that. Its major aim was to do advocacy, to do litigation, but also empowerment in terms of the right to health. And we've done several cases in public interest litigation, majorly looking at maternal health, but we've also extended into issues of regulation of the private sector when it comes to health, and issues of mental health. So we've expanded into several areas where we've made inroads in litigating the right to health.
Okay, you sort of starting on a high note, talking about how enforceable this right is, but perhaps before we got there, can we just understand, when we talk about the right to health, what are we talking about? Why should I care about the right to health? Like, what's the big deal about this right?
The right to health.
What does it contain as a package? What do I find? What will I find there if I say this is the right to health?
The right to health has its bedrock or its foundation in the human rights of Uganda. When you talk about the human rights of Uganda, they were set up after the Second World War. So countries went to war, they fought each other, everyone died. Then afterwards they said, we should stop killing each other. We should find a way of living harmoniously. So in 1948, the UN set up this big assembly. They met together and they passed what we call the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So many countries in the world, including countries that you wouldn't assume, are actually signatories to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And under the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, they established several human rights. And then they established several committees and several conventions to come up with specific rights and explain them. So thereunder, they set up what we call the Convention of Economic, Social and Cultural Rights. So it has under Article 12 what they call the right to the highest attainable standard of health.
Highest attainable
standard of health. So this doesn't mean that you have a right to be healthy, that every time you get malaria, the government must be held responsible. No, no, you must take care of your own health, but it means that the government must put in place certain things to make sure that you're able to enjoy the highest attainable standard of health. Not just your physical health, but your mental health, your spiritual health, your social well-being, everything to make sure that you are okay and living in that particular way. So Uganda ratified this particular convention, and then we haven't yet domesticated it into our constitution per se, but jurisprudence or court decisions, which can also make law, have read into the fact that if you have ratified an instrument internationally, then you can enforce a particular right at a domestic level. So we enforce it through that, but we also enforce it through the right to life, and also through the right to freedom from cruel, inhuman and degrading treatment, and also the right to dignity. So what does it mean for a normal Ugandan if the right exists? The right means that the government has what we call 3 obligations. There is an obligation to respect, an obligation to protect, and an obligation to fulfill. Okay,
that's a very interesting area. Yes, so let's build on those obligations, because I want to see Ugandans holding people accountable on some of these issues. So when you talk about respect, what does it actually mean?
When we talk about respect, it means that the government by itself should stay away from violating that human right. So they shouldn't do anything that would not enable you to enjoy the right to
What are
health.
the things that a government will do that would make you sick?
For example, they can put in place a law or a policy that would forbid you from accessing that particular right. So they have to stay away from that.
Okay.
Equally, maybe they may take away a health center. There they are taking away your right. So they are not respecting it in that particular
If LDs
regard.
came you. Is that
You're enforcing another human right, not the right to health. Yeah, it
Ah.
could be in freedom from cruel, human and degrading
affects your
treatment.
health.
But it does affect your
Yeah.
health because all human rights are interlinked and they just sort of feed into each other. So you can't have one without having the
Yeah.
other, and it's one of the basic principles of human rights.
Okay.
So they cannot in any way stand in the way of you. Like, for example, if you remember what happened in COVID-19, women were pregnant, they had to go to hospital to give birth.
Yes.
But then the curfew was saying that everyone must be at home.
And get a
but I
pass.
am due. So that in itself means the government is not respecting your human right because they are placing a barrier in place of you
Yeah.
being able to
We'll talk about those COVID experiences later on.
Yes.
But you talked about 3 rights. You've explained one. How about the protect option?
The protect
obligation.
option now extends to third parties. When you're talking about protecting, it means that the government must make sure that no third party hinders your right to health.
Oh.
So they must put in place processes to make sure that people don't stop you from enjoying your right to health. I'll give an example
Yes,
of maybe if you've got an accident on the road and you need emergency care and
Yes.
you're rushed to a hospital.
Yes.
They have in their guidelines what they say that when a person comes in and they need emergency help, before they pay, treat them, put them in a place where they are okay and can survive, then they pay later. Now, where a health facility tells you that cash down before we put your leg back in order, the government has not put in place enough protective mechanisms for you to enjoy your right to health. So it's about the government's obligation to make sure that third parties do not interfere with your right to health. And the last one, which is fulfill, is the most contentious.
Yes.
Because the other two are easy. They just mean an obligation. But the challenge with fulfilling is that it imposes a positive obligation on the government.
Yes.
That beyond you stopping other people or beyond you stopping yourself from interfering in my right to health, I must go ahead and put in place certain things to make sure that you enjoy your right to health.
What are those things?
They must put in place hospitals, they must put in place health workers, they must put in place what we call goods and services.
Goods and services.
Goods and services.
Personnel.
Exactly. Everything, all that, medicine, equipment, blood everything must run efficiently as per the 5 pillars of the public health system.
Okay. Rose, you mentioned that we don't have an express law on the right to health. So how have you been, what have you been basing your advocacy on? Because then people would say, it's not by mistake that Uganda has not ratified this. Maybe it's by design. I don't know. So where do you then derive your mandate from, especially at the national level?
At a national level, where we derive our mandate from, as I said, our constitution within itself doesn't expressly provide for the right to health. But thereunder, they have a particular provision where they say that all the rights that are stated within Chapter 4 do not preclude other rights that are contained in any other instrument. They equally go ahead to say that if Uganda has ratified any other international instrument, then it can be enforced under the Constitution. So we have ratified the International Convention on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights. We've also ratified the African Charter, which provides for the right to health under Article 14. So we can therefore enforce them there.
Also, you squeeze around.
Yeah, so it's a tall order. You go around the mountain, go around, but ultimately you arrive. But our Supreme Court, in a recent decision that was passed last year, I think it is a case that we had litigated on maternal health, where we were talking challenging government's failure to provide basic maternal health commodities within public health facilities. Court agreed with us, and they said that the right to health is intrinsically provided for in the Constitution and therefore can be enforced. So that within itself, by court making that pronouncement, you can rely on that direct.
You will survive under the yeah, because Supreme Court definitely makes laws. And you talk about cases. I know that you put in a couple of cases in court on different, health rights. I don't know what your experience has been, litigating matters related to the right to health. What are some of the issues, challenges that you've been encountering?
I think some of the challenges that we have found is, number one, in the failure to delink the right to health from medical negligence.
Okay.
There is a need to always, the judges always, they don't understand the right to health independent of.
As a concept of
exactly,
its own.
Independent of medical negligence. The problem with medical negligence is that it looks at health in isolation, and it looks at the wrong that has been committed by a health worker individually. But when we tried to take cases to court through that way, we found that our system within itself is flawed. So a health worker may be available, but they cannot work on a patient because they have no gloves.
Yeah.
Or maybe there is a case we had in Arua where there were 2 midwives and they were working on 40 mothers on a ward at one time. Definitely issues of blood, blood transfusion. A health worker may be there, but they don't have blood to transfuse you with. Or another case that we worked on in Mitiana, where the midwife was looking at a woman bleeding, but because they had no gloves, she couldn't even touch the woman. So people will blame the health worker, but then the system must support the health worker to do their job.
Yeah.
And medical negligence cannot support such a claim. It cannot support it. So you have to take it through the right to health, because then you're able to attack the system in its entirety instead of limiting it to maybe the limitations of a health worker, because our health system within itself is completely flawed.
I mean, that's quite a chilling account, some of the revelations you're highlighting here. So then, with all the issues that we have in our health sector already, we get COVID-19. Novel, some people argue that, when it was in China, we were like, that's a Chinese problem. We're good, as a country. But then, I think it was around March or something like that, we started, the signal started dropping in that perhaps the virus is not very far from home, and a lot of things, had to change. So at this point, I would like to get your insights specifically on how COVID-19 impacted on, of course, human rights broadly, but specifically for this conversation, the right to health, because it's a health issue, of course. COVID is, but specifically from the way you've crafted explain the right to our viewers, we now see what obligations accrue and what needs to be done, and perhaps what was done. So I think we'll start after a short break on how the government of Uganda responded and how the virus affected our country. Viewers, you're watching You and the Law, the COVID edition here on House of Talent Television. My name is Jonathan Ochom, and today we are sitting with Ms. Rose Wachikona from the Center for Health, Human Rights and Development, that we mainly popularly know as CEHAD, to discuss how COVID-19 has affected the right to health. Let's go for a short break. We'll be right back.
When it comes to the law, we basically live the law, on a day-to-day basis, Whether it is in your bedroom, there is a law that governs it. If you're married, for example, even if you're single, there could be something touching on the law, because you might be in your bedroom with an underage girl, or you might be with another person's wife. All the things are the law.
If you're a human being, you have rights. Those rights are called human rights. They are examples: the right to health, the right to freedom from torture, that underscores human dignity. Freedom from slavery. You're not supposed to be someone's slave.
if you look at our penal code,
Yeah.
it sets out another marriage laws. It sets out the persons who can marry and those who cannot marry, right? For example, you can't marry your close relatives. You know, if you did, you'd be committing a crime.
The state is not supposed to tell you who to worship, how to worship, how many times a day. No, you have a right to work. A right to work. You have freedom of association.
Cohabitation for whatever period of time does not make you husband and wife, right? And that is why we emphasize to people that when the relationship is still hot, you know, you must ensure that you do what? Marry.
Yes.
You know?
For human rights to be respected, protected, and fulfilled, relevant government programs must actually work. Medicine should reach hospitals, oxygen should be there, health workers should have gloves, teachers should be present. Now they are mostly absent, and they have left the profession, a good number of them. They are into trading. So things must work. If things don't work, human rights are not respected, are not protected, and are not fulfilled.
COVID-19 has tested our hope and faith as individuals, families, and the country at large. Besides destroying many aspects of our lives, the novel coronavirus has also affected our human rights in many ways. You and the Law, the COVID edition, is a 30-minute weekly television program that focuses on the impact of COVID-19 on human rights in Uganda. The program engages experts to explain the importance of rights-based approaches to the success of any public health response to ensure the respect, protection, and fulfillment of human rights amidst the challenges presented by COVID-19. You and the Law, the television program, brought to you by Legal Hub Uganda, taking the law to the last mile in proud association with I4C Africa Hub and House of Talent Television, coming soon.
Welcome back. This is You and the Law, the COVID edition here on House of Talent Television. My name is Jonathan Ochomo, your host. Today we're discussing the right to health, and we're privileged to have Ms. Rose Wachikona, a Senior Program Officer at the Center for Health, Human Rights and Development. Rose, welcome back from the break.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so before we went for the break, we started this conversation on how the right to health has been directly hit or affected by COVID-19. And I thought you could, pick on from there. What are your insights?
I don't think it has affected it negatively. I think it has exposed the challenges and the things that we have been talking about for the past, I don't know how many years.
Okay.
People always had this presumption that, social security is not an issue that we should put a lot of effort into. You people are asking for too much. There is this theory that they call progressive realization,
yes,
that we can only put into social security as much as the country has. And that is when all our political leaders and all our mainstream ministries would keep saying that, Uganda is a developing country. And they even forget that we moved to developing and developed, and they say, we are a third world country. We have no money. We have no money. So internationally, the government had made commitments. They made commitments in the Abuja Declaration, where they said that they are going to commit 15% of the entire national budget to health.
15%.
15%.
Colossal sum.
That was about 10 years ago, I think, in 2010, if I'm not mistaken. But 10 years down the road, they can't do it. They are stuck at about 5%. I think this year we are at 6.5%, if I'm not mistaken. So they had hit a stall. And even that 6.5 that they committed to healthcare within the country, 70% of it is funded by external donors.
Yeah.
So maybe the EU will come in and contribute something to malaria, USAID will come in and contribute something to HIV, and that is the way that they would consolidate their budget.
Yeah.
But the government was putting very minuscule resources into the right to health. But it's not only the right to health in isolation, even in education, even in shelter. We know very well that this country is suffering shelter deficit within the country itself. But they were doing nothing about it. They were no more interested in politics, politicking, prisons, and things to do with civil and political rights.
COVID.
But now when COVID came, it exposed the rot that existed. Suddenly, our healthcare system could not take in patients. It was ill-equipped. We had very few health workers who could even manage patients of the stature of COVID. They couldn't do free and mandatory testing as was expected by the WHO. We had no ICUs, no beds. We had nothing. We even had no PPEs. And indeed, the developed world was saying that, Africans are going to die like ants. Yes. And we all prepared to die like ants. But thank God that didn't happen, and that anticipation of gloom didn't happen. But it exposed what is going on within our healthcare system. The second wave of COVID-19, we saw how people struggled just to raise money to treat one COVID patient. Yeah. It just showed us that all of us are one illness away from total, complete poverty. Yeah. And it showed the importance of having social security. So the conversation started changing. Right now, even for the ULS to hold an entire symposium on the right to health, for me, it's an achievement within itself. Because way back, they are like, no, they are arresting some political prisoners. Let's go and rescue some victims of torture, which I know is very important. But ideally, a person's well-being and their ability to live a life which is of quality, I think supersedes any other thing.
So you're celebrating?
We are celebrating.
Some people could argue that you're being sadist, you know, in a way, because we've spoken to people who've talked about other rights, labor, education, everything, and people are giving a gloomy picture, but you're here smiling.
I am. I am, because even now when I go to court, it's very easy for a judge to understand where I'm coming from. Yeah. When you look at the maternal health petition that we argued it for over 10 years. Yes. And we were pushing court to understand that it is important for a health facility to have a glove so that a woman can give birth safely. And a judge couldn't understand that. They just couldn't. And you push. Finally, they agree. But now, when we filed a case challenging the regulation of private health facilities, suddenly everyone was understanding where we are coming from. The judge was like, indeed, these health facilities are charging too much money. So how can you charge 5 million per person? No, the government agreed, and the matter was settled within a span of 1 month, which is something we had never heard of, because the government felt it wasn't a priority for them to look at social security. So for me to walk into a courtroom with a case, with a cause of action in the right to health, and a judge welcomes it, for me that calls for celebration.
Okay, quite a rare one, to be honest, from the number of people that we've hosted here. But then I'll take you to the government interventions. So of course, when the virus, came here, government had to act to ensure that we curb down its spread. But what do you make of the interventions that were put in place, and to what extent did they protect the right to health? What worked?
I think the COVID-19 exposed where we are going in the future with human rights, and that is the conflict that arises between human rights. Right now, you look at public health, then you look at them limiting our rights to freedom, you look at limiting the right to education, limiting the freedom to movement, and you see the tag. You begin to look at the tag. The interventions of the government, of course, were timely. For that, we thank them for whatever it is that they did. And they took it too far at one point. Okay. They took it too far because the purpose of limiting human rights was in order for them to establish, to prepare for the next phase, if I would say. So the first lockdown, they said, all of you stay home. Let us buy beds. Let's equip our hospitals. Let's procure PPEs. Let's work on vaccines. Yes. And we all understood. And we stayed home. But they didn't do that. They didn't procure PPEs. They didn't equip our health facilities. They didn't do anything. So when the second phase comes in, again, it finds us where we were in the first phase. Yes. And again, they lock us down in order to prepare for a third wave. But again, they still haven't done what they are supposed to do. So the challenge is we now begin to delve deep into what does it mean to restrict a person's human rights indefinitely. When you're talking about restricting the right to education, and a child has been seated at home indefinitely, you don't know when the schools are going to open. Is that justifiable in a democratic society? We have to begin asking ourselves some of these questions, because it's well and good, even our constitution says that these rights can be limited for purposes of national security, which includes, it has been interpreted again in another case in the Supreme Court, to include issues of public health. But then again, there are schools of thought that are coming in to say, what does it mean to restrict my right indefinitely? So there are people who have come up, and there are decisions that have been made on how you can be able to restrict a human right. And number one, they say it must be within law. Now, the restriction of human rights on the basis of law is under the Public Health Act. But our Public Health Act was made in 1935. It caters to diseases like smallpox, measles, diseases of long ago. Some of us just hear them like there used to be smallpox somewhere, but really it's not a reality for most of us. And this brings to our mind archaic laws. Can you limit my right based on an archaic law?
But we had presidential directives. Were they not filling the void?
But now those presidential directives, were they made legally? Because under the Public Health Act, the powers are given to the minister. I don't know when our president became a minister, but he constituted himself into a wrong.
Some people argue
It's a wrong office.
that ministers exercise delegated authority.
No, but for her,
president,
she's
so-
given powers directly from the law. But now she was deriving her powers from the presidential directives instead of from the Public Health Act, as she is mandated to do. So that within itself also wasn't legally done. The person who was supposed to be at the forefront of the fight against COVID-19 was supposed to be the minister to issue ministerial directives and statutory
Regulations and
instruments. But now they turned it upside down. But on a basis of a law which is an inheritance of colonialism. Again, we go down to the discussions that we are having right now of decolonizing some of our laws. And this is not the only law. I'll also point out another archaic law we have in health, which is the Venereal Diseases Act.
What makes it archaic? Is it just the year of birth?
No, it was made in 1975. Do we still call them venereal diseases?
I have no idea.
They are now called sexually transmitted infections. But the law that is supposed to deal with some of these diseases still refers to syphilis, all the diseases, not the new current STIs that we have. And it is the similar situation. So our law wasn't prepared to handle an epidemic like COVID-19. It wasn't, because it was on a basis of old law. It is really, really an old law. So it brings in issues. This law was even made before the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which means that even within itself, it doesn't contextualize or bring the human rights aspects. So it centers not the patient, it centers the doctor. So the decision of the doctor becomes final in everything that you do. They will look at you and say, oh, it seems you have COVID-19, and then they will mandate your quarantining. They will mandate they can enter, search your property without any notice. They can destroy your property without compensation, isolate your family without any compensation to you, without any notice, without any explanation. Because in those days, public health was centered around the doctor, but never the patient. So that is the problem with that particular law. So we have statutory instruments that come out that again center the health worker. That's why you see women dying on streets while trying to give birth. You see so many things that are going wrong, but it's because we haven't inculcated human rights within our particular laws.
So as far as you are concerned, COVID only acted to expose what you've been singing about,
Yes.
and just telling us as a country that, okay, perhaps now you can hear us out.
Indeed. It exposed the rot within our healthcare system. Our healthcare system has a lot of challenges,
Yeah.
right from the skilling of our doctors to the point of equipping our health facilities. You know, we're working on a case in Mitiana, and this is one of the saddest cases I had ever dealt with, because this woman was pregnant. It just portrays an ordinary Ugandan woman.
Yeah.
Very pregnant with twins. She didn't have money for a scan, so she didn't know she had twins.
Oh, dear.
So she reaches, time to give birth, she goes to a health center 3. When she reaches there, she produces the first twin. After giving birth to the first twin, the second one was breech. Unfortunately, the health center 3 couldn't give her a C-section.
Yo.
So they give her a referral letter to go to Mitiana General Hospital. Mitiana General Hospital was 13 kilometers away on a Maram Road.
Oh dear.
Now just know there are no ambulances. They had to put on a border. So they put on a border, she sits like a man and they start moving. Along the way she falls off. Then they carry her, put her back. Then they reach Mitiana General Hospital. When they reached there, she had only got one mama kit in antenatal because the expectation was she was going to give birth to one child. So at Mitiana General Hospital, the midwife asked her, "Where is your mama kit?" It's like, "I don't know. I don't have." They used it the other side.
Okay, Rose, we need to go for a break. We'll pick on from there and try to look to the future, thinking about how do we handle this in case we find ourselves in this situation. Viewers, you're watching You and the Law, the COVID edition. Today we're discussing the right to health. How has it been affected by COVID-19? Let's go for a break. We'll be right back. Welcome back from the break. This is You and the Law, the COVID edition. Today we're discussing the right to health and how it's been affected by COVID-19. And with me in studio is Rose Wachikona, our Senior Program Officer at CEHAD. CEHAD is the Center for Health, Human Rights and Development. Rose, welcome back from the break.
Thank you.
So we need to look at the future. But we can walk a few steps back. Because I remember when COVID came, everybody said, you know, we've handled Ebola before. We've handled cholera before. So this will pass as well. But I wanted to sort of start with asking, what lessons have we learned or should we learn from COVID-19? What are the things that we should reflect on as a country? And then later on, we shall talk about, you know, your recommendation. But I thought it's important to learn first. What do we learn from the current situation that we find ourselves in from the angle of health rights?
I think one of the biggest lessons that we have learned is about quality of life. We emphasize a lot, especially in African tradition, but even in Uganda, the number of people we have. But we rarely consider the quality of lives that people live. And we leave it to people to fend for themselves at that level. And you know, socioeconomic cultural rights come in to buttress the issue of quality of life.
Yes.
So I think the big learning was the quality of life that people live actually matters.
Yes.
It's important to have social security in place. People should be able to walk into a hospital and get treatment. People should be able to walk into a school and get out in P7 when they can read and write.
That should be the normal.
That should be the normal. It
Yes.
shouldn't be the abnormal that, oh my God, you can read a book. So some of these things we should normalize having good quality life.
Yes.
And I think as a country, that is something that we need to begin demanding from our government. We need to begin demanding strongly. And for me, that was a big learning. But also the other big learning, which we knew, but we didn't really know, was the gaps in our healthcare system.
Yes.
And how hard hit it was, how our healthcare workers suffered to hold this country afloat when we were suffering with COVID-19. So for me, I think those were some of the big learnings we had.
Okay. So we're looking at the future. Rose could be our Minister of Health, or having a portfolio in the government, and then you're a duty bearer, like you've been explaining set obligations at the start of this show. Worst case scenario, we find ourselves in a similar situation in pandemic, a natural disaster of these proportions. Can you run us through a few ideas that you think can enable the country prepare better to be able to deal with that problem and ensure that we protect people's right to health? What should be done to say that, okay, if anything like this happens again, we are good as a country, we'll deal with it?
I think the first thing we need to do is to honor our international obligations. As a country, we need to increase funding for health. We need to increase funding as of yesterday. We can't be here and saying that 70% of our health budget is being financed by external people who will then dictate what they can or cannot finance. That's why you'll find maybe HIV has a lot of money, but things like TB have no money at all. Issues like cancer have no money at all. It's because our healthcare system is being managed by external partners. As a country, we need to urgently increase our budget, internal budget, not external budget for health. Let us pay our health workers well. What's wrong with the doctor getting 5 million shillings per month? Will the country die? They won't. There is no evil in paying our health workers well. There is no evil in buying medicine and equipping our hospitals. But that will only come when we prioritize the funding of our health care system. But the second thing that is coming up, and which has really struck us hard in this COVID-19 pandemic, is our archaic laws. We keep talking about, we were celebrating Independence Day. Afterwards I said, but what are we independent from? If they are still holding me accountable to laws,
A 1935 law.
that were left by the British. The British have moved on. They no longer have those laws on their statute books. But as we cling on to them as if, the other time I was talking to a fellow lawyer and I was wondering, why are our judges wearing wigs? Why are they wearing those why are we forced to wear flaps, gowns, what? Those are not African things.
You want to wear backcloth to court.
Let us wear backcloth to court. The Kenyans have done it, and I think they've done a really good job of decolonizing their judiciary. They've done a good job of decolonizing their justice system. I think we need to borrow a leaf. Instead of thinking that a lawyer is that person who wears a wig in court, let it be a lawyer is that person who wears backcloth in court.
Not a witch doctor.
So let us decolonize our laws. I think our Public Health Act has shown us that our Uganda Law Reform Commission needs to wake up. There are very many laws on our statute books that are just not cognizant of what is going on in the country right now or the recent developments in science. And we need to be able to update them according to our African context. And we need to deal with things in an African way. During COVID-19, we were borrowing heavily from WHO, which was borrowing heavily from the global north. But we found that their solutions were not working for us.
Not fitting.
They say social distance, but you're living in a house with 10 people and there are 2 rooms. How are you going to social distance? So we need homegrown solutions to some of our challenges instead of just relying on God to save us. This time he saved us in COVID-19. The next pandemic, he might not be able to do that.
So for you, it's about financing the sector, legal review, and that should be able to. Now, part of the emphasis of this show is on rights-based approaches to pandemics. And I'm wondering, from where you sit, what are some of these, how would that look? What does the right best approach to a pandemic, what would it look like? And if Uganda's, has been following those approaches?
By and large, Uganda has not been following those approaches, especially with its statutory instruments. As I told you right now, there is a criteria for limiting human rights. Because in the human rights discourse, you can limit a human right because of public interest, which includes public health. So, but to restrict it, there are 3 criteria that you must meet. The first one is that it must be set in law, that this right can be legally restricted. The second one is that it must address a pressing concern. And the last is that there must be a time limit. We have not done anything about time limits. We've had curfew for the past, I don't know, 3 years now. I don't even know how. But that is an abrogation of my human right. But there is no end in sight for curfew. So every now and then, the reason why they insist on limiting the restriction is that every time you limit it, you must reassess whether you need to continue or not. This thing of restricting the right to education without any end in sight. So even that within itself needs to be addressed, especially the time factor for the limitations of the human right. But at the same time, not thinking that COVID-19 is the only disease that affects people. People need their ARVs, they need their contraceptives, they need their condoms. Allow them to be able to get them in peace. Yes.
Okay. Viewers, Rose has made a very strong case. One, we need to fund our health sector. We need to review our laws as a country, because then we'll be able to live with the times when you get a pandemic that is disturbing us in this day and age. Stop relying on cake laws. And I hope MPs out there, or responsible ministers, are listening, are watching, and able to take action, because today we might survive, but we don't know what the future could look like. With that, viewers, we've come to the end of today's episode of You and the Law, the COVID edition. I've been your host, Jonathan Ochom, and we've been having a discussion on the right to health with Rose Wachikona from the Center for Health, Human Rights and Development. And next week, we'll have a look at another right which has been affected by the pandemic. And that you will get to know when the show runs. With that, we've come to the end. I'll see you next time.
An army of sheep led by a lion will beat an army of lions led by a sheep. That's a fair.
Yeah.
So let's be very honest about this thing, and really understand that you need to understand where you lie and where you fall. So it's very important for us to understand that leadership has to be definitive. You can't be laissez-faire. It has to be definitive. You have to be strong, just like a lion. You know, when a lion meets an elephant or a buffalo or whatever, the buffalo and all these animals run away. And yet, by the way, they are stronger than the lion, they are heavier than the lion, they are more intelligent than the lion, they are taller than the lion. They run away. The lion, because of its attitude, it sees lunch. That is a leader.
Mr. Tonatra, thank you very much for coming to the CEO bench. And I want to ask you, so if you were elected the President of the Republic of Uganda today, what would be your first State of Nation address? Now, as you look into the camera and close the show,
I think my first State of the Nation address would first of all to. I think I'll just close it down.
Coffee industry is very wide, it's very big, it's very full of opportunities. Don't sit there and say, I have nothing to do. You can join the industry. You can get whatever you want. If you give it time, invest in it. By giving it time, don't look for money, don't look for big salary at first. First learn. After learning, you'll get how much amount you need. Yeah. In coffee industry, there's no like, barista should get this amount of money. No, it depends on your knowledge. Yeah. What you know is what you get. You cannot be like having junior experience and asking for experienced one. No. You can join now. Good thing, everything is simple. Yeah. It's easy. Don't sit there and say, oh no, I'm scared to join this. No, it's very simple. You can make. Yeah, it's very simple. It's not so difficult. Simple, very simple. Very enjoyable. You can do everything when you're enjoying. You can do your coffee. You can serve your customers. Coffee create friendship. Yeah. Coffee gives you a job. Even if you are not working in a cafe, maybe you can go in different field, but still in coffee industry. Yeah. Yes.
Put up the camera.
COVID-19 has tested our hope and faith as individuals, families, and the country at large. Besides destroying many aspects of our lives, the novel coronavirus has also affected our human rights in many ways. You and the Law, the COVID edition, is a 30-minute weekly television program that focuses on the impact of COVID-19 on human rights in Uganda. The program engages experts to explain the importance of rights-based approaches to the success of any public health response to ensure the respect, protection, and fulfillment of human rights amidst the challenges presented by COVID-19. You and the Law, the television program, brought to you by Legal Hub Uganda, taking the law to the last mile in proud association with I4C Africa Hub and House of Talent Television.
Angela, so having stated the obligations, what would be your assessment of Uganda as a country? How are we doing in as far as the prevention of gender-based violence is concerned? What would be your quick appraisal? How are we doing as a country?
As a country, I'll first appreciate the successes. I'll commend government to some extent that there have been enactment of laws that, like the Domestic Violence Act. We have the other laws and even the Constitution itself. However, there's still a lot that has to be done. Yes. For instance, as a government, we have a silent pandemic that most people that are in government have failed to understand. This silent pandemic is gender-based violence, where people are focusing on how many people are dying of COVID, and no one is focusing on how many people are becoming victims and survivors of gender-based violence. So it really, really affects. And then the other thing is in regards to the implementation. We have very, very good laws in Uganda, but then one of the main issues that we face is in regards to the implementation of those laws. So there's lacking in regards to the implementation. And then there's also lacking in regards to sensitization. People don't know these laws. You'll find someone harassing a person online and they'll think it's funny. Someone look at you and they're like, oh, and then they'll give you a sexual comment and they think it is funny, it is okay to look at a woman or a man and you make a sexual comment.
Even men, huh?
Yes, so that's why I said a man or a woman. So this affects either sides. It affects a woman, it affects a man, and it affects also children.
Hello viewers, welcome to yet another episode of You and the Law, the COVID edition here on House of Talent Television. My name is Jonathan Ochom, your host. Today we're discussing yet another right or another aspect of our rights that has been affected significantly by COVID-19. As you know, in the previous episodes, we've been tackling different issues. We talked about employment law, we talked about land rights, we've talked about access to justice, we've talked about human rights broadly as a theme and how COVID-19 has affected it. But today, we look at gender-based violence. What is the intersection between COVID-19 and gender-based violence? And with me in studio is Angela Simwe, who is a human rights lawyer and working for FIDA Uganda. Angela, you're welcome to You and the Law.
Thank you so much, Jonathan.
How have you been?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Great. So COVID-19 came here. How have you been coping up, knowing that almost for the last 1.5 years or 2 years, the game has been a bit different. How has it been on your end?
On my end, it has been a bit complicated, but with time, I managed to cope up because I'm so much into online work. So most of the work I had that was physical, I transferred it to online because I work mainly with people that are vulnerable and marginalized women and children. Yes.
So you manage to keep afloat?
Yes.
Okay, so I know you do, so many things, but I also know that you do some work for FIDA Uganda, and I thought perhaps you could give us 1 or 2, 3 lines about FIDA Uganda for people who could be hearing about FIDA for the first time. In the unlikely event that those people are there.
Okay, so FIDA Uganda is a women's rights organization and a feminist organization that is a membership organization for women lawyers aimed at ensuring that people, especially women and children, get access to justice in all spheres of life. Yes, so that's what we do mainly.
Oh, so I can't apply to be a member?
No, men can also be members of FIDA, but they are friends. So women lawyers are members of FIDA if you pay the subscription. Yes. But then for the men, you can be friend of FIDA.
So I befriend Angela and I become a friend of FIDA.
You befriend FIDA and the work FIDA does. So you as Jonathan, a human rights lawyer that advocates for the rights of women, girls and other marginalized groups, you can come to FIDA and request to be one of our friends. So you become a friend of FIDA.
Okay.
Yes. So we have men that are friends.
Perhaps I'll be filling a few forms after this show. Okay. So today we're here to talk about gender-based violence and seeing how how COVID-19 has affected that area, either heightened or reduced it. But I thought that we could start by understanding first the concept. When we talk about gender-based violence, what do we exactly mean? How would you explain to an ordinary person this whole idea of gender-based violence?
Okay, thank you so much, Jonathan. So gender-based violence, what we have to know is it evolved from violence against women, and that was under the UN Declaration on Violence Against Women, where they defined, or to make it easier for the ordinary Ugandan, like you said, it's any act of violence that can be physical, emotional, economical, or anything that is harmful to a person. So it's basically violence that has different forms.
My quick understanding of violence would entail sort of physical contact. So how are people violated economically and, I don't know, emotionally?
Okay, so what we have to understand is violence is not only physical. There are several forms of violence. For physical, that's where you'll find the battering, that's where you'll find beating someone, getting physical with someone. But then for economical, that's where you'll find issues to do with refusing someone to take their assets, in issues to do with land, where you deny someone because they are a woman, so you deny them the land and say that a woman can't inherit land. And then there's also something to do with the mental or psychological, where you can make sure that a person is psychologically tortured, so that is also violence. And then we also have the other violence, which is to do with emotional, but emotional is related to psychological. And then there's the harmful practices. So harmful practices, that's where you find female genital mutilation and other harmful practices we have. Then the main one that has been on the rise during the COVID-19 pandemic is sexual violence, which has many components to do with defilement, rape, incest, marital rape, even online. These days it's worse and online.
Yeah.
Yes, so those are the forms of gender-based violence that we have.
Okay.
Yes.
Angela, you explained this idea in an eloquent manner, and I'm curious to know, so where are these ideas embedded? Because if we talk about fighting gender-based violence, we should have some framework in place to facilitate our work. So if you look at global, regional, or national frameworks, what is there? What do they provide for in that regard?
Thank you so much. So in regards to the frameworks we have, I'll start with our constitution. The Constitution of the Republic of Uganda under Objective 14. It's very, very clear that the state is obligated to protect rights of people. And then we have Article 33, which is rights of women. Because gender-based violence mostly, especially in Uganda, affects more of women than men. However, we're not saying that men are not affected. So Article 33(3) is clear that it's in regards to protecting rights of women. However, in the Objective 14 of the Constitution, it's protection of all rights of people. So that's where you find gender-based violence issues that are aligned. And then we have other laws like the Domestic Violence Act. I'm privileged to be one of those people that belongs to the Domestic Violence Coalition. The people that ensured that we worked on the Domestic Violence Act in Uganda, and it was passed. And FIDA is also a member, and other organizations that are women rights organizations. We also have the Penal Code. However, the Penal Code is a law that has been in existence for ages. So there are many loopholes. We also have the one of prohibition of female genital mutilation, which is in regards to the harmful practices that I told you about. Then we have the Sexual Offences Bill. Now those are all national. Sexual Offences Bill that was enacted in 2010, but up to today, it's still lagging because people feel it is okay to have issues to do with marital rape, not to consent. So we believe that as women, as men, as children, there's need to pass the Sexual Offences Bill so that it protects all people, because it's a law that consolidates all laws in regards to sexual offences. Then in regards to the regional level, we have what we call the Maputo Protocol. That one is a bit related to the Sexual Offences Bill. It also covers those issues to do with marital rape, to do with abortion, to do with issues to do with LGBTIQ, because in the Sexual Offences Bill, one of the reasons that's why we didn't want it to get passed is because it criminalized. Yes, even sex work. It criminalized sex work. Yet everyone has a right to decide what they can do as a human being. Yes, so I see it has become funny. Then we have the UN Declaration against violence against women. So there are several laws. And we also have the CEDAW, which is mainly in regards to violence against women.
What is the CEDAW in full?
So CEDAW in full, we have it's mainly a UN AU charter that is against violence against women. But then they make it in form, even Maputo, because it was made in the town of Maputo, yes. Then we have the Beijing Declaration, Platform for Action. So some people also call it Beijing. So those are some of the laws that are both at national, regional, and the international level. Yes.
Okay, so with that sort of good background in the law, then I'm curious to know then who's responsible for doing what? Whose duty is it to protect, to prevent gender-based violence? Who does the law vest with particular specific mandates in this regard?
So if we go to duty, one of the things that people need to understand is there's a right and a duty, but then it's everyone's duty to make sure that we combat gender-based violence. But then the state, under Objective 14, it's clear that it has to protect rights of the people. And then apart from the state, we the people, as Angela, as a human rights activist, as a lawyer, I also have a right and duty to protect and also ensure that I fight for the rights of the survivors. And then the community leaders, because we have some community leaders that are gatekeepers of patriarchy. And yes, so what I mean mainly, patriarchy is like domination by men,
Yeah.
where someone feels that a woman is more inferior to a man, and that's where you'll find people thinking that women are property. So a woman is abused just because a man paid dowry, and then they don't know that dowry is something where the case law is now clear that it's not buying a woman, it's just a gift. So you don't have to beat a woman just because you took something.
Yeah.
And then there are also religious institutions. They also have a big role to play. So every time they keep telling women, you have to submit. If a woman beats you, a man beats you, it is okay. So we also have to engage them so that they play their role. And these days they are trying to do a good job, because I've listened to radio stations, TV stations, and it's clear. They tell people that gender-based violence is a vice that needs to be stopped. So all those institutions and individuals have a big role to play. So it starts with you and me, and then it goes to government, and then it goes to the leaders in the community, then it goes to our MPs, it goes to also the international level. And that's why we gave you both national, regional, and international, because it's everyone's duty and role to protect women and men against gender-based violence.
Angela, so having stated the obligations, what would be your assessment of Uganda as a country? How are we doing in as far as the prevention of gender-based violence is concerned? What would be your quick appraisal? How are we doing as a country?
As a country, I'll first appreciate the successes. I'll commend government to some extent that there have been enactment of laws like the Domestic Violence Act. We have the other laws and even the Constitution itself. However, there's still a lot that has to be done.
Yes.
For instance, as a government, we have a silent pandemic that most people that are in government have failed to understand. This silent pandemic is gender-based violence, where people are focusing on how many people are dying of COVID, and no one is focusing on how many people are becoming victims and survivors of gender-based violence. So it really, really affects. And then the other thing is in regards to the implementation. We have very, very good laws in Uganda, but then one of the main issues that we face is in regards to the implementation of those laws. So there's lacking in regards to the implementation. And then there's also lacking in regards to sensitization. People don't know these laws. You'll find someone harassing a person online and they'll think it's funny. Someone look at you and they're like, oh, and then they'll give you a sexual comment and they think it is funny, it is okay to look at a woman or a man and you make a sexual comment.
Even men, huh?
Yes, so that's why I said a man or a woman. So this affects either sides. It affects a woman, it affects a man, and it affects also children. Yes.
So it's basically, you're basically saying we are there but not there.
We are there but not there. And then the other thing that has also failed totally is in regards to the shelters. The numbers are increasing. The 2016 demographic survey was clear. 25% of girls get pregnant below the age of 18 years.
Wow.
And since the onset of COVID-19, the numbers have doubled. And in the last report we had, there were over 60 girls that get pregnant below the age of 18. And that is also related to gender-based violence under the form of sexual violence.
Wow.
So you realize that if we have such a number, and then we have a president that will go on television and tell people that if these girls have not died, it is not an issue. That is really, really crap. We can't say that this is an issue. So, because this is a silent pandemic. Every now and then they are releasing numbers of girls that are getting pregnant. And yet we have a government that has done nothing about it. We have no shelter. We have no laws that are implemented that are very clear. Yes. So,
Angela, that's a sort of a sad revelation, really, your closing remarks at that point. But I guess it's time for us to go for a break and cool off a little bit. Then after that, we'll pick on from there. Viewers, you're watching You and the Law, the COVID edition here on House of Talent Television. Let's go for a quick break. We'll be right back.
When it comes to the law, we basically live the law, you know, on a day-to-day basis, you know. Whether it is in your bedroom, there is a law that governs it. If you're married, for example, even if you're single, there could be something touching on the law, because you might be in your bedroom with an underage girl, or you might be with another person's wife, you know. All the things are the law, you know.
If you're a human being, you have rights. Those rights are called human rights. They are examples: the right to health, the right to freedom from torture that underscores human dignity. Freedom from slavery. You're not supposed to be someone's slave.
If you look at our penal code,
Yeah.
it sets out another marriage laws. It sets out the persons who can marry and those who cannot marry, right? For example, you can't marry your close relatives. You know, if you did, you'd be committing a crime.
The state is not supposed to tell you who to worship, how many times a day. No, you have a right to work. A right to work. You have freedom of association.
Cohabitation for whatever period of time does not make you husband and wife, right? And that is why we emphasize to people that when the relationship is still hot, you know, you must ensure that you do what? Marry.
Yes.
You know?
For human rights to be respected, protected, and fulfilled, relevant government programs must actually work. Medicine should reach hospitals, oxygen should be there, health workers should have gloves, teachers should be present. Now they are mostly absent, and they have left the profession, a good number of them. They are into trading. So things must work. If things don't work, human rights are not respected, are not protected, and are not fulfilled.
COVID-19 has tested our hope and faith as individuals, families, and the country at large. Besides destroying many aspects of our lives, the novel coronavirus has also affected our human rights in many ways. You and the Law, the COVID edition, is a 30-minute weekly television program that focuses on the impact of COVID-19 on human rights in Uganda. The program engages experts to explain the importance of rights-based approaches to the success of any public health response to ensure the respect, protection, and fulfillment of human rights amidst the challenges presented by COVID-19. You and the Law, the television program, brought to you by Legal Hub Uganda, taking the law to the last mile in proud association with I4C Africa Hub and House of Talent Television, coming soon.
Welcome back. This is You and the Law, the COVID edition here on House of Talent Television. I'm Jonathan Ochom, your host. And today we're sitting with Angela Sime from FIDA Uganda to discuss gender-based violence and how COVID-19 has affected or impacted on the whole gender-based violence situation in the country. So Angela, welcome back.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Before the break, you were unpacking the responsibilities and obligations of the different people. You talked about the state, talked about the religious leaders, individuals, and stuff like that. So I want us to switch gears now and then tackle COVID-19. So we have a global pandemic comes to Uganda, and the government, as expected, had to swing in action and put in place a number of stringent measures in order to curb the spread of the virus. And but along the way, we realized number of issues arising along the way. But I'm curious to know from your end, what is your assessment of how COVID-19, the interplay between COVID-19 and gender-based violence?
Thank you, Jonathan. So one of the first things I want to let people know, we've had many people blame COVID to have brought gender-based violence, but COVID is not the problem. It has, COVID is not the problem. It has been there before. Gender-based violence was there before COVID-19. So one of the things we have to understand is when COVID-19 came, the stringent measures that you talked about, the restrictions, the lockdowns, are the ones that accelerated the numbers and increased them. So when people were locked down, especially the first lockdown where people are not allowed to move, and we realized that people like you, the lawyers, were not allowed to work, you are considered non-essential, by the way.
Yeah,
so,
but as we more needed at that point, yeah.
So mainly what you have to understand, those restrictions increased the rate. And then that was because many people were stuck with their abusers. Most of the times, yes.
Okay.
So
I thought people were stuck with their spouses, their loving spouses.
There are people
their
that
children.
were stuck with their loving children, loving spouses, but then there are also those people that were stuck with abusers. Most of the times there are people that will go out there and they look for a sexual partner, but then now you're stuck in a home and you're with people that don't even connect with you. So the next thing you're thinking about is, okay, what do I do now? And one of the things we have to understand is people that are perpetrators of sexual violence don't start during the pandemic, but they have been doing this. Maybe they were doing it with other people, but now that they are stuck in homes with these young children, with the women, with the men, then those become the victims. Because then you can't go out there. Maybe they were having the sexual violence in offices. Now they are home. So who else can you have? It's the people that are at home. I'm one of the people that work with mainly teenage girls. And those are pregnant teenage girls, because I'm also a survivor of sexual harassment that gave birth at the age of 15. But then we got over 80% of cases that were incest cases. You've realized that these are fathers that are defining the girls. These are uncles, these are aunties, these are, you get? So at the end of the day, there are people that have the power and influence. Before COVID, people that had the power and influence were mainly teachers, border riders that take your children home. So those that are the people that had the power then. But now you're home. So people were very, very much stuck with those abusers. And that's why the rates increased. And then the other issue was to do with getting services. Previously, especially to do with physical violence, even sexual violence. Physical violence will start with the police. Very many people, especially those that live in far-to-reach areas, there was a time where even borders were restricted to move, and you needed like a letter from the RDC.
Yes.
So when they beat you and you realize that the police station is like 5 hours away, you wonder, how do you get there? You decide to die in silence. You're like, okay, let me not put out the dirty laundry, because what if I don't even reach there? And then the other thing was to do with, apart from the police, to do with the courts. People that are supposed to ensure that these survivors get access to justice, like you and me, we're not out there to provide it, because we are considered non-essential in the first lockdown. So courts were not operating on such matters, because according to the president, he realized and thought that it is okay to tell Ugandans that gender-based violence is not an issue that needs to be concerned and also needs to be addressed, where people can access justice. He said, unless it is to do with like murder, to do with robbery, the things to do with gender-based violence, to him were not.
You can understand where he's coming from.
You can't understand if you're someone like me who works with gender-based violence shelters. I've worked with several gender-based violence shelters, not only the Remnant Generation, even Uwanet shelters. Last week we are reopening the shelters of Kamuli and Namutumba. Those are under Uganda Women's Network. And that is in relation to the shrinking civic space. We have a shelter that is closed just because the government is threatened and thinks that women rights organizations are terrorists, which is stupidity, because how do you call a women rights organization a terrorist? So they close the shelters, the numbers are increasing, and these people have nowhere to go. Action Aid also has. But then during the COVID pandemic, we've had a flood where you don't even have where to put survivors, and some of them ended up living in our homes. So it's an issue that was supposed to be tackled. So when it wasn't tackled, it kept accelerating. And then they keep blaming COVID, but it's not COVID, it's the system in place. If the system was in order and people can access justice, people can go to police, people can ensure that there's a shelter. Government has consistently failed to set up a shelter for gender-based violence survivors. And yet it limits the organizations that have put these shelters up. Because we have like 5 women rights organizations that have set up shelters for gender-based violence. But then you realize that even the restrictions that are there to start and also to operate, they are very, very stringent and draconian. So it becomes so hard for these people to provide the service to these, to the survivors. Yes.
So, Angela, you paint a very sad picture. We could be factual, but I'm sort of anxious to know, aren't there things that we can say in this area? The government did well. At least it intervened this way, but tried. This intervention also was considerate of, GBV, and perhaps it tried to cap down the prevalence of GBV. Aren't there, from the COVID response, aren't there things that we can quote unquote celebrate as a country from the government's intervention?
The first thing I said, I commended, because the first thing is in regards to the laws. We have the laws, but then we failed on implementation. So it's a success and not a success.
No, I mean in
Two,
the context of
COVID response.
Yes.
Still, when after the first lockdown, when they opened up and the hospitals are operating, that's a plus. It's a success. And then, but then you realize that even when the hospitals are open, transport fees, too much. Not everyone can afford the transport of taxis now.
Yeah.
Even border.
Yeah.
They have doubled the price because the taxi that was taking 14 people is now taking like 7.
Yeah.
So if you are living in Tinda and you're going to Masaka, the transport you'll use, let's say it was 20,000, now it is at 40. How many people can afford 40,000? So yes, there are measures that have been done, and we commend and we thank the government that it opened up. And then also we are grateful that also I've realized that there are also areas where the Ministry of Gender, we commend them, especially Angela. Angela, who is also the PS of Ministry of Gender, was part of the opening of the shelters of Uganda Women's Network. Even AIGP Hassan Kasinje. That shows that they have also played their role, not only as government people, but also as individuals, to ensure that this is worked on. So them being present and also encouraging people to come up and go to the shelter for their services means that government has tried and it has done something. But then we're not saying that it should stop. It should do better. We expect more from this government. Yes, we don't only expect peanuts. We expect something big. But then we also have a role to play. That's why we've said as FIDA, we make sure that these women, children get access to justice. And then we don't only work alone, we work with the Domestic Violence Act Coalition, where you'll find the Uganda Women's Network, you'll find the Action Aids, who have shelters. And they're also playing their role. But then when they're playing their role and you shrink their space, then that becomes a problem. Yes.
So Angela, you've highlighted the challenges that government has gotten itself in. But I'm then curious to know, what role do you think that ordinary people at the family level, because it's important also to highlight, the community aspect. We can't push everything to government, whatever the justifications. What do you think the people could have done or should do, because we're still living under COVID measures anyway, to prevent GBV, especially in extraordinary times like now, at the community, family, individual level?
So first and foremost is main desensitization. As community leaders, the time they were getting those microphones or whatever they are called, vuvuzela, to tell people that mask up, they would also have used that chance to tell people and inform them about this silent pandemic, which is gender-based violence. And then also open their doors and inform people that in case anything happens, we are open, you can come and report. Because the other thing that really affects people is in regards to the norms, where someone can't speak up. Saying that you're a survivor of gender-based violence is seen like a taboo. How do you say that? You're putting the dirty laundry out there. But then if we sat down as the community leaders, and they did that, but then we start from family. So as I'm a mother of a 14-year-old son. I always sit him down and we have the conversations in regard to sex education. I tell him, if they touch you like this, if they do this to you, if they make these comments, this is what happens. Please report. So encourage people starting from home to speak up. To speak up when they get issues to do with gender-based violence. But also make sure that other forums, because if you can't access the police because it's far, then let the LC be nearby and let the LC have, because they gave them motorbikes, I remember. So they can drive those survivors to the police station. Yeah. So it will start from family, where we talk to our children, then it will go to the leaders, and then it will go to government, because government indeed can't do everything. And then also as civil society and women rights organizations working together, because that is one of the main reasons, and also a way that we've tried to make sure that that happens. And then other ways works to do with the toll-free lines. Many people, I also commend Uganda Police Force. They also got a toll-free line in regards
for GBV?
Yes, for GBV. Okay. Even other organizations, FIDA got, we have a toll-free line also in regards to GBV and other cases to do with women and children, Women's Pro Bono Initiative, the Remnant Generation, and other organizations. So really, there's a lot that has been done, but then there's more that needs to be done.
A lot that needs to be done. Then in terms of the the legal framework, which is one of the core obligations of the state, you've highlighted that there are a number of still challenges with the law. Are there specific laws that you are pushing for their reform to protect GBV?
Yes. So the main law that we're pushing for is the Sexual Offences Bill. Sexual Offences Bill is the law that consolidates all laws concerning sexual offences. And it will work on in regards to the punishing the offender and then ensuring that the survivor is catered for, not only in court, but also mentally. So when this law is passed, then it becomes very easy. And then the laws we had previously, as I told you, like the penal code, these are laws that were made during the colonial times. They don't address issues to do with online sexual violence.
Contemporary.
It doesn't, yes. By then we had norms where a woman was property. They don't address issues of marital rape. They don't address issues of consent. So if this law that addresses all those things is passed, then we'll see something that happens. And then the other thing is in regards to the institutions. We realized that some institutions of higher learning were closed, but then others were operating. I'm happy to inform you that under FIDA Uganda, we worked with Makerere University, which is like the first university in Uganda or the public university, and we made sure that we had the policy which they had against sexual harassment was reviewed, because it was a policy that was enacted 12 years ago. And I'm privileged to inform you that as under FIDA as sent to be one of the committee members that participates in reviewing it with the Professors Livia Tamales and Gender Mainstreaming Directory. So right now, when we finished reviewing it, it was passed, so it will also help in regards to institutions of higher learning.
Okay, Angela, that's an important point. Perhaps we'll go for a break for now, and then we'll return and then try to project the future and see how we can prepare ourselves. Viewers, you're watching You and the Law, the COVID edition here on House of Talent Television. Today we're discussing gender-based violence and its connection with COVID-19. Let's go for a short break. We'll be right back. This is You and the Law, the COVID edition here on House of Talent Television. I'm your host, Jonathan Ocho, and today we are sitting with Angela Sime from FIDA Uganda to discuss the connection between COVID-19 and gender-based violence in the country. Angela, welcome back from the break.
Thank you.
So this is our final segment where we look at the future, because we recognize the fact that, yes, we're in pandemic times right now. It could come to an end at a certain point. It could stay for 5 or 10 years or whatever it is. Hopefully it doesn't. But then also we could find ourselves in with another problem of a similar magnitude. And as a country, it's important to sort of pick lessons from COVID-19. So I thought we could start by discussing from the angle of preventing gender-based violence. What lessons do we learn from the current COVID pandemic and our response to it? What have we learned that can inform our actions for the future? Then perhaps later we shall then talk about specific recommendations, but I thought we could start by lessons first.
One of the lessons we've learned is in regards to family. Family being the main unit. You know, previously people were more into sending children to schools. And as parents, we were so redundant and we didn't play our role. So one of the lessons we learned is let's have our children get the conversations in regards to sex education so they're able to break the silence and report. Then in regards to government, one of the challenges was to do with allocating funds in regards to gender-based violence. Going forward, we learn a lesson that there's need to ensure that when they're allocating funds, they need to also consider other emerging issues, not just the pandemic. So you don't focus only on the pandemic and leave other challenges that are facing in the country, because also other things came up like land, but also mainly the main thing that rose was gender-based violence. So we don't only have to focus on the pandemic, but the country has to continue running. And then the other lesson we learn is that everyone is essential. What are the things we learned in Uganda? That without one structure, the other can't survive.
True.
Yes, so that's one of the other lessons, that we should know that everyone is essential in their own way, and everyone contributes to the other person's work. So we need everyone. And lastly, the other lesson we need to get is working together, collaborations. I like the collaboration, like I told you, our government now is coming on board to work with women rights organizations in combating gender-based violence. So we should continue with that, working together in ensuring that we end gender-based violence. But then ensuring also, the other lesson we learn is that there's need to have platforms that are safe spaces. And safe spaces to do with shelters, to do with going to police, good thing they have now a department to do with the women and the children. So having those spaces, not just there, but then training these people and ensuring that when people grant to them, they can provide the support that they need. Yeah, so those are some of the lessons we learned.
Okay, now we then need to think about where we headed. Scenario, let's think that Angela is the next, Minister of Justice, Minister of Gender, Labor and Social Development, sort of in a docket, in a position of responsibility that, has a higher say or a higher mandate on prevention of gender-based violence in the country. What would be those recommendations that you'd push for to ensure that if we find ourselves in a similar situation, the country is prepared? Because I think when this started, people used to think it's a problem of China. It's a problem of the rich world. It can't reach here in Africa. And remember at the start, they were saying that it doesn't even catch Africans. Black people are okay. And then until the thing came through Entebbe Airport and spread across the country. So what would be those things that you'd say, government, ABCD, prepare now so that if we find ourselves in this, we'll be able to maneuver through and ensure that GBV is prevented in Uganda?
In regards to government, one of the main things would be in regards to passing the sexual offences bill, because it addresses at least 90%. I wouldn't say like everything, but at least 90%. However, they have to remove the clauses that are criminalizing other people's rights.
Yes.
And then the other thing is in regards to ensuring that perpetrators are held accountable. We've seen as one of the people that spearheaded Justice for Samantha campaign, and it was in regards to ending sexual harassment in the workplace. But then we see the alleged perpetrators not tried under courts of law, but then promoted from a deputy solicitor general to court of appeal. So we need to have stringent measures of ensuring that the perpetrators or the alleged perpetrators are brought to book, where the survivors can feel safe that, okay, if court said that this person is innocent, then that's okay. But then if you don't try this person in a clear court, which is a court of judicature, then it doesn't also help the survivor, because the survivor will also suffer again. And then the other issue is in regards to ensuring that the laws we have are implemented. Because like you said, if as Minister of Justice, I would ensure the first thing was to ensure that there are measures that are clear and these laws are implemented. Because having good laws like the Constitution and all these other laws, and these laws are not even implemented, doesn't help anyone. Yes. And also maybe encouraging people out there to break the silence.
Yes.
To break the silence and know that this vice, if you don't break the silence, then you can't help other people that come out there and they're also survivors. But when you break the silence, like Angela comes in and tells you that she's a survivor of sexual harassment, then it is easier for the other person to also speak up. So encourage more people to speak up. Then we also need to ensure that even the institutions that help in combating gender-based violence, like the police, courts, local councils, We need to have more trainings. I commend women rights organizations, especially FIDA, the Remnant Generation, Uganda Women's Network, who have done a great job at training police officers, at training cultural leaders, religious leaders in regards to combating sexual and gender-based violence. But there's more that needs to be done, especially at government level, where now the women rights organizations have done this. So they should also complement and do something in regards to that. So those are some of the things that need to be done in regards to combating gender-based violence.
You highlighted training as an area of investment, but I'm sort of curious to know what other areas do you think need government deliberate attention on? Because I know if you talk about training, you're talking about resources. What are the other areas that actually resources should be dedicated to? So that we're able to deal with pandemics or any other situation like COVID-19 and prevent GBV.
The other areas in regards to resources is to do with our budgeting, especially the national budget. Realize that most of the times, even now when COVID came, since the onset of COVID, all the money is directed to COVID. So they need to allocate some money in regards to Ministry of Gender and towards fighting or combating gender-based violence. Because if most of the people who are engaging in Ministry of Gender, they were like, okay, we also want to support, but then we don't have a budget for this. And there's nothing much you can do about it. So as women rights organizations, if you're to work with them, you'll end up even funding them. You'll pay for most of their services to make sure that something works out. So there's also need to also ensure that they direct some funds in that docket. Yes.
As we come to the end, Angela, I want to sort of get your parting shot, but in the form of, want to make a case why we should invest in prevention of gender-based violence. What benefit shall we reap as a country when GBV is prevented as we come to the end of the show?
When GBV is prevented in Uganda and in the world, women and girls can achieve their full potential. As Angela Simwe, a survivor of sexual harassment that gave birth at the age of 15, I was able to achieve that because I broke the silence. So if we invest in this, then more girls can be like Angela, and even better, then more girls and women, plus even men and boys who are survivors of sexual harassment, they can be able to achieve their full potential. They can be able to achieve gender equality, and then they can contribute to the development of the country as Uganda, but also Africa and beyond.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Angela, for taking your time to be with us here on House of Talent Television, discussing COVID-19 and the relationship with the gender-based violence. You've made very strong points for the need for the government to invest in areas that matter, training, skilling of actors on prevention of gender-based violence. You've also emphasized the role of the community in preventing GBV and the fact that all of us have a role in this country, not just on the government, religious leaders, cultural leaders, as a family and individuals who have a critical role to play in preventing gender-based violence, especially in critical times like now that we find ourselves in because of the global pandemic. With that, we've come to the end of today's edition of You and the Law. I've been your host, Jonathan Ochom. Next time, we'll have a discussion on yet another right which has been affected by COVID-19. Until then, bye.
Well, how is everyone doing today? My name is Atengi Manuel and this is House of Talent Television, the Coffee Break Show. Welcome once again. This is the show where we get to talk everything about coffee. Last week we had a very good discussion with the guest who was here. And this week we have a new guest who has been working in the UAE. He has a lot of experience in coffee. He's he's planning on becoming a roaster from a quality controller. He's also a barista. He has worked basically outside Uganda and is planning to go back to work in the UAE, coming down here with all the knowledge that he has. Welcome with me to the show, Mr. Becca Ali.
Thank you so much.
Becca, you're very welcome to the
Thank
Coffee
you.
Break Show.
Thank you, Mr. Michael.
It's really good to have you here. We've had a lot of baristas, we've had roasters, we've had farmers, we've had a lot of people coming through here, and having someone of your experience is a really very good thing. This is the House of Talent, where we try to, just expound on matters that really affect people out there, and this show is basically about coffee. So before we get into other things, we just want to know, who is Becca Ali? If someone, when we go to interviews, people always ask us, tell us who you are. And it's always the hardest question
Yeah,
to
definitely.
answer.
The first thing should be to know someone who you are dealing with.
Yes.
My name is Becca Ali Kabito.
Yeah.
Born in Uganda, Masaka.
Okay.
Currently living in United Arab Emirates, Sharjah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what's your story? How did you get up from Uganda and just decided, one day I should go to Sharjah?
Sorry?
When did you decide? Okay, and for what reason did you say, you know what, Kampala has refused, let me go to UAE?
Didn't refuse at all, but
Yeah.
I was recommended by also my brother who was there, who was living in UAE,
Yeah.
and saw me that, oh, Becca, what are you doing now? How's things there?
Yeah.
Wasn't good, wasn't bad, around 50-50.
Yeah.
Then he told me, okay, you can come and join us in UAE,
Yeah.
and you see, if you're passionate, you can join me
Yeah.
where I'm working now. If you are not, maybe you can find another job for you.
Okay.
And I said, okay, let me come on ground and we see what we can do.
Yeah.
So I started planning for that. I collected some money, family helped me,
Yeah.
and I went to UAE.
Okay. So when you got to UAE, what was the first job? Because people go to UAE and do various jobs. Okay. So what was that first job that you ended up doing?
Well, it's not easy to get a job what you want in UAE
Yeah.
when you are not experienced.
Oh.
So it took me like 2 months
Okay.
without job.
Yeah.
Then after I got to one company called ADNOC. It's Abu Dhabi company, petroleum industry.
Yeah.
Then I started working there. I started working as a forecourt. From forecourt, I went in a C-store, working
Yeah.
in supermarket. From supermarket, and I became acting supervisor. Then, promotions.
Yeah.
After completing my contract, I changed the industry and I switched to coffee industry
Yeah.
until now.
Okay. So that's what I want to find out, because working in the petroleum industry seems like something bigger, something with more money actually, It would take a very big thing for someone to say, you know what, let me leave petroleum, especially in the UAE, because we know that is literally the source of petroleum, So I believe that maybe you are making more money, okay, but one day you decided that I should switch over to coffee, What made you decide to switch over to coffee?
Well, petroleum is not bad company.
Yeah.
It's not bad industry. It's very good, but was not meant for me. I tried, I pushed, but didn't work out for me. It's
Yeah.
not bad. It's very good. As paying very well.
Yeah.
Yeah, giving everything you need in time, give a lot of privileges, but for me, it didn't work out for me.
Yeah.
Yes. As you know, each and every industry have some issues, so it depends on your passion.
Yeah.
Yes. I worked there, but for me, what I can say, I was lacking promotions. To work in the industry without promotion,
Yeah.
it's like you are working for nothing. Okay, it's fine, you can work, but it depends on your passion.
Yeah.
Yes, there's no promotion. There was no promotion. There was no not enough time for me.
Yeah.
I'm a researcher. On the other hand, there's no enough research there.
Yeah.
And it's not easy to say that, okay, maybe I'm working in this industry. When I go back home in my country, I can start up my own petrol station. Yeah, it's not easy.
Yeah, that's
It's not easy.
That's very true.
Yeah, But in coffee, maybe you can be working in a cafe and say, I gained some knowledge here. let me go back in my country and I open up a cafe. It's easy.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah, I understand. Interesting. So you moved from petroleum, you've decided, okay, you know,
yeah, I switched from petroleum industry and
Yeah,
I joined
into
coffee industry.
Okay.
Yes.
So most people, the baristas that we've had here, everyone, there's a couple of guys who learned on the job. You know, we had a guy who said that his first experience. We've had other guys who actually went to a school and learned, you know, how to become a barista and a roaster.
Yeah, it's
Where
true.
did you start when it came to coffee?
It was a very big challenge for me.
Yeah.
To switch from one industry to another, how it became a challenge and how I accepted the challenge.
Yeah.
First of all, I joined coffee industry without any knowledge, without any experience. Even I don't know how to drink coffee.
Yeah.
Yes. And I said, okay, let me join this industry. But as I told you, I'm a researcher.
Yeah.
I researched about it before I joined. And I said, maybe according to my passion, when I join this industry, maybe to take me to another level.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing is becoming true. Okay? Then it was a challenge for me, salary-wise.
Yeah.
I was getting more in Adinoc. When I switched to coffee industry, the first position I get, I was getting less.
Yeah.
I accepted that. Why? It was a challenge for me.
Yeah.
Why I accepted? Because I needed to study. I needed to learn more. I needed to inquire more knowledge.
Yeah.
In petroleum, like you cannot inquire more knowledge.
Yeah.
There's more, like no more studies, whatever. Everything is like normal.
Yeah.
Then I sat down with my boss who was giving me a job, and he said, okay, I'll offer you this offer because you don't have any knowledge, you don't have any experience, you don't have anything, but we'll try to train you and you'll train yourself. And I said, okay, it's fine. After seeing how you work, we will increase you in future.
Yeah.
And I say, yes, it's fine for me.
Yeah.
And I joined.
Okay, so that
From
was-
there, I didn't like waste any time. I started immediately to study about
Okay.
coffee, to do research, to do everything, to test the coffee until now.
Yeah.
And still going on.
Yeah. So talking about studying, are there particular schools in the UAE where you go to study, or are there particular courses that you have to do for you to be involved in the coffee industry there in the UAE?
Courses. There's schools and there's courses. You can be buying courses, you can buy online, you can go like some training centers, because coffee industry is very wide.
Yeah.
It depends on where, like on your field. There's some people who are latte artists. He can be making good art, he can be making like amazing things in art only.
Yeah.
You can find someone more interested in brewing. So his passion is like in brewing, can be making different types of brewing, knowing all apparatuses, knowing everything.
Yeah.
But for me, I said, okay, I'll engage in everything. So I started with my company. Good thing, the company I started with in coffee, they have AST. AST means Authorized SCA Trainer. SCA means Specialty Coffee Association.
Yeah.
So I started with the company is having a SCA trainer. So I paid an amount and I started studying with him.
Yeah. So the SCA certificate that you got, I was reading your interview that you had in one of the coffee magazines.
Not one, yeah.
Or many.
Yeah, not one.
Maybe I haven't read some of them.
Yeah.
And it said you had a couple of certificates, 3 if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
From SCA 3 and
Yeah.
others not SCA, different, yeah.
Okay, so the ones from SCA are 3, and the other ones are how many?
Around 3 or so.
Around 3.
Yeah, but national, not SCA, not international.
Not international, yeah. But it's in Uganda, okay, we have a situation whereby we have baristas or people involved in the coffee industry who go to school for a month or 2, and after that think that they know a lot or everything about coffee. Yeah, and having your experience, having all these certificates, going through all these courses, yeah, what would be your comment on that? Do people need to stop at 1-2 months of barista
No.
school, or they need to progress from there?
They have to progress
Yeah.
immediately. You know, when you join industry, the first thing you have to learn the language. As in coffee, coffee itself is like a language also.
Yeah.
If you don't have coffee language, it will be hard for you to understand coffee language, to understand like words in coffee, to understand this. So basically those who study like 1 month, 2 months, they get only basics.
Yeah.
In basics, there's language, there's like an introduction to coffee, and simple things to understand. This is coffee, this is beans, this was like that only. But after getting job, they have to push again.
Okay.
To study more.
Oh.
They find themselves in bigger positions. Coffee industry is full of opportunities, full of how can I say, like full of positions. It depends on you.
Yeah.
Since once you push yourself to another level, you can go. But when you stay there, you'll be there. Like some people, you can find someone who is a junior barista. Yeah, he started as a junior barista 1 year, second year junior, third year still junior. Means he's not pushing himself.
Yeah.
So you have to push yourself to go to another level.
Okay. Yeah. And still with the same, I was reading in the magazine how you had a couple of people who helped you along the way. Yeah. I believe that everyone needs a teacher, everyone needs a guide, you know. So who are these people you met along the way that basically trained you and, you know, encouraged you to be the person that you are today in the coffee industry?
Yeah, I have a lot of friends. The first person is called Mahadi Bujingo.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a coffee master and he's now a partner in one cafe there. So he's a good man, he's a very good man. Good, like he introduced me to coffee because he was working there for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Then I like what he was doing, then also joined coffee. From there, I started learning coffee. There's Nicholas, there is Calvin, Dragon, my teacher, he's a European guy, and my boss as well.
Yeah. So most of these guys, you met them in the UAE?
In UAE, all in UAE.
Yeah, so before in Uganda, you had never had any experience with coffee? You didn't even know it existed?
I don't know even what is coffee. No.
Well, you're not alone. I remember before I started doing this show, actually, you know, I didn't even know what a barista was, yeah? But it's good to know that with experience, we get to learn a lot of things, yeah? Viewers, we're going to get into a break right now. You're watching The Coffee Show on The Coffee Break Show on House of Talent Television. My name is Emmanuel. Today I'm hosting Mr. Baker Ali, who works in the UAE as a quality controller with Drowsy Coffee. We'll be hearing more from him and about him when we get back after this break. This is House of Talent Television, The Coffee Break Show.
You have to know the brew ratio. Actually, the brew ratio is I think the most important. Brew ratio now most people may not understand. It is the ratio of the coffee powder to water, and the yield. Water in this article will bring us into the yield. If I put 10 grams of coffee into my portafilter, how much of it am I exactly? So if you don't master the brew ratio, oh, everything is going to turn out a mess. You understand? Even if you know that knowledge and you don't master the brew ratio.
Welcome back to the Coffee Break Show on House of Talent Television. Remember, you can always catch us on our Facebook at House of Talent Uganda, on our YouTube at House of Uganda, on YouTube at House of Talent Uganda live stream, or you can go over to our Twitter HTV1 and catch all the shows. And for today, especially the Coffee Break Show, my name is Emmanuel, and with me in studio is Mr. Baker Ali, all the way from the UAE. Baker, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
We were talking earlier, and you're saying that you're actually planning to go back to the UAE.
Yes.
You've been in Uganda for how long, ever since coming back?
I have 2 weeks now.
2 weeks now.
Yeah, 2 weeks now.
And what has been your experience with Uganda in these 2 weeks? Because I know that a lot of things changed. I hear that now when you go to the airport, there's a lot of complications here and there. And, you know, being in the UAE, I know that you're used to a very different kind of culture. Then you come back to Uganda, it's very different. So how have you been able to cope in the last 2 weeks in Kampala?
Oh, well, I didn't find any problem with it because I'm minding my business. And I don't force anything. That's the system. And I cannot change the system because I'm not in that position. So I just see things as it is.
Okay.
And I continue with my way.
All right,
Yeah.
interesting. So we just wanted to paint a picture and compare the coffee industry in Uganda to the one in UAE. Because you've had really a good experience in the UAE and less experience in Uganda. But I
Yes.
also believe that you've been around the coffee shops, you've interacted with a couple of people here when it comes to the coffee industry in Uganda. What are some of those major differences that you have seen between UAE industry and the coffee industry or the culture in Uganda?
So in UAE, I can say it's growing very fast.
Yeah.
They don't have any farm there for coffee. All coffees from Africa and other countries under coffee belt.
Yeah.
But UAE is very far in coffee. Why they are very far? They have a lot of education about coffee.
Yeah.
They do a lot of research. They train their staffs. They do everything. We lack that one here in Uganda. In Uganda, we have a lot of baristas, we have a lot of coffee people, but they lack something, education. They need to study about coffee to understand really what is coffee.
Yeah.
From the seed, from the farm. We have good opportunity here in Uganda. We have farms.
Yeah.
You can go even in a farm free of charge without paying anything and do your own research.
Yeah.
So in UAE, you can study everything. You can test everything you want in time. But here, like, if you want to try something, means you have to pass through this one. You go to another person, check another person. That's wastage of time. So everything should be straight. I think, according to my opinion, they should give chance to upcoming people in coffee, upcoming baristas, upcoming researchers to do their own research without any objection.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that is one part. The other part is the coffee culture, okay, especially when it comes to the side of the consumer, okay. Uganda is not predominantly a coffee country. We export a lot of coffee, but we don't consume a lot of coffee. Okay, we are predominantly a tea kind of culture, but in the UAE, I believe it's predominantly coffee. Okay.
Yes.
So, why do you think in Uganda, okay, we export but do not consume that much coffee?
Generally, 98%. I think I can say 95% in UAE they drink coffee than here. Here, I don't know how I can say that one. I just feel it, but I don't know how I can explain to you that one. But for us, we are farmers. They are not farmers. They are consumers. You get my point?
I get it.
Yeah, they are consumers. But for us, we are farmers and we are exporters. So we do everything for them. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, there's an ideology that coffee is seen as a rich person's thing. Like there's a certain class you have to be a coffee drinker or a coffee consumer. Okay. Do you think it's the same? Do you think that's one of the factors in Uganda why we don't consume a lot? Because if I say I'm going to, let's say, Java's or Cafe Seri to take a cup of coffee, people look at me like
a rich person. Not really. It depends on the mood also. Coffee is, people like should understand why you drink coffee. Yes. Why do we drink coffee? Or why someone can drink coffee other than tea? Or why someone can go in cafe and give me anything other than cafe. But there is, other than coffee, but there is coffee already. I say, okay, give me maybe juice, maybe give me something fresh. Why do we drink coffee first? Yes, that's the point.
So we also need, apart from educating our baristas and the people involved, we also need to educate the consumers of coffee.
That's the work of barista. To teach the consumer and to explain more about coffee so that customer will come again.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so that is actually what I wanted to ask next. So the baristas have a very big role because they are the face of the coffee industry.
Yes.
Because when you look at the background, you have the farmers. No one really ever goes to see the farmers. I don't believe that a consumer will go all the way down to the farm to see where it comes from. people rarely interact with the roaster, with the quality controller, but all of us know the barista. Okay, so you as a barista, you've been a barista, and you're the face, let's say, of the coffee industry or of the shop wherever you work at. Okay, what are some of those qualities that a barista needs for one to be a successful barista and also to make the business that they're working in successful?
Studying and customer service.
Okay.
First of all, there's no bad coffee,
Yeah.
but there is bad baristas. There's no bad coffee at all. Even if coffee is good, barista can make it bad, can make it good or more good. So the issue is still to train the baristas well, to give them what they need, to provide them with everything so that they introduce to customers, to consumers, they'll keep on coming.
Okay.
And to train them why they drink coffee, how much like cup of coffee I have to drink in a day. Yes.
Okay. So there are those small things that a barista has to do. Okay. For example, all right, if I reach, let's say, my station late, my job is supposed to start at 9 o'clock, and I know customers will be there at 8:55. I end up coming in at 9:15. I believe that is one of the qualities that a barista needs, timekeeping, because for coffee everything works in a certain time frame. Okay, what are some of those other small things that a barista has to do for themselves, okay, to make sure that they're successful? Timekeeping is one of them.
Timekeeping.
Okay. What are the others?
They can add on the way how they do brewing. They can add on other, like, for now we are in third wave of coffee. They can add on other skills. The way how they do coffee. Not only making same cup of coffee every day. Coffee, this one I can make, like, for instance, I can make in one cup different type of coffees. So if you come today, I'll give you this one. Tomorrow I'll recommend another thing. Next day another thing, but in same coffee. It's my job as a barista to train you, or I mean to teach you or to show you another way how I can make that thing. Cleanness is part of barista work. Like taking control of everything in the bar and outside the bar. Yeah, that's the things.
Okay, so timekeeping, cleanliness, educating
customers.
The customers. Yeah, and on the side of the customers, okay, one of the most important things about any industry, any service industry, is customer care. Okay, but the customer care is a two-sided thing. I'm a barista, I'm offering really good service to my people, but on the other side we have customers who are just, for lack of a better word, a headache. When they come there, they make your life as a barista really hard. You know, some don't even know the kind of drink that they want to order. They order a latte, you bring them a latte and they thought it was something else. Okay, so how does a barista deal with certain customers that really just give them headache? You know, the ones that shout, the ones that don't make it a good experience for the baristas. How would you as a barista handle such a situation?
On that point, I can say it depends, and it's like this. You should know how to take proper order from customer. We call them voids. Avoid making voids from customer. How you take void order, or how you take their order. The way how you ask me which kind of coffee you are going to drink. For me, as a barista, I already understand which one I'm going to give you. For instance, we have one menu full of many types of coffees. Customer will come and say, they don't know the names, maybe they don't know the pictures. We just point on one thing and say, give me this one. Before you make that coffee, ask customer, have you ever tried before? Do you know about it? Then it means after asking customer, it's easier for you not to make wrong order. Problem come when customer asks something they don't understand. But to avoid that, we need to be having communication between barista and the consumer. Okay. Yes, communication.
Yeah. So yeah, that's one other thing that is really necessary for a barista, good communication skills.
Good communication.
Yeah. We're talking earlier and you say that you came over from the UAE and I believe that you're about to go back and basically you came down to do research. Okay. And you've been involved in research. I believe that you've gone to a couple of farms, you've visited other coffee shops and different places. What are some of those things that you have learned in your research about, you know, the coffee industry in Uganda that you can share with us?
Yeah, the species coffee species, very important, and they see the other methods of brewing coffee.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, here in Uganda, I don't want to criticize, but I'll just talk a little bit.
Yeah.
We don't have specialty. We have, but not so the standard one. Because I've tried in different cafes, trying to search where is specialty coffee. I didn't find any.
Yeah.
I don't want to mention names because I'd be like attacking. It's fine. I don't want to attack anyone, but we lack to get specialty.
Oh.
And I've been here searching for any AST in Uganda. We don't have anyone. I just heard that we have only one lady from Kenya who is coming here and teach people about specialty.
Okay.
We should introduce that as soon as possible. We have to introduce specialty in Uganda. Why we have to introduce specialty? What is specialty? Before we go furthermore.
Yeah.
So, after knowing that means we still lack a lot. And good thing, everything is possible. If they give us attention and people like we work together, we cooperate, we can achieve, we can get some very, very premium, good coffee from here. Specialty, on specialty standard. Yeah, we lack specialty. Coffee is good, it's not bad. I'm not saying it's bad. It's very good, but there's one part which is called specialty. Only that one is missing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you talk about specialty, take us a little bit deeper, because the people out there are saying now, what is specialty? What is he talking about? So what really is specialty when you go deeper into it?
It's a wave of coffee.
Okay.
First of all, it's a wave of coffee. We have 3 waves now, which is known.
Okay.
First wave in 1882, after discovering the coffee.
Yeah.
They used to make coffee in a traditional way, without adding anything, without use of machine, without doing anything. The way how they get from farm, they put in a boiler, whatever, they cook, they drink, without even removing the skin.
Yeah.
Traditional way, until 1972.
Yeah.
We get second wave of coffee. Was brought by American company called Starbucks. I don't know if you know that one.
I know Starbucks,
yeah,
yes.
you know Starbucks. It was introduced by Starbucks from 1972. They modified a lot in coffee. They came up with grinders. They came up with machines, espresso machine.
Yeah.
They say we can add milk on coffee. We can do, like, they modified coffee. Until now, still working. It's not bad, but they are on commercial basis. They are doing coffee in their own concept. It's very nice. It's not bad.
Yeah.
Until 2007, when you get Specialty Association, it was also brought by American company called the Specialty Coffee Association of America, SCA. I don't know if you know that one. So it was brought by also American people.
Okay.
They came up with international standards. That's the main point.
Yeah.
Means everything you do, like in this cafe in Uganda, you are doing same in America, in Oman, in UAE, everywhere. So we are following the standard. That's the thing. So we are doing the same way. The same way how you do it here, same like there, because we have the standard.
Okay.
But when you're working on commercial basis, means you'll be having your own concept. What you are doing here, you are doing only here. Your neighbor will be doing another thing. So 2 parts.
Okay.
So we lack only the specialty.
Okay.
Means if you are used to drink the specialty and you go in commercial, you'll feel things different.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. If you're watching out there and you're wondering what is specialty, Becca Ali has just broken it down. If you thought it was a very big science, he has broken it down into something that we can all understand. This is the Coffee Break Show. You are watching me and Becca expounding on his journey and different aspects about the coffee industry. We're going to take a break right now for you to grab a cup of coffee. But when we get back, we shall be brewing our own cup of coffee also. Take a break right now. This is the Coffee Break Show on House of Talent Television. My name is Emmanuel Ateng.
I think most female feel like being a barista is more of a male job, or being a farmer is a male thing, or being a quality controller. Yet they don't know that there are other perfect people that we are looking at. So we want to bring this gender equality into the coffee business. I would thank this the International Women Coffee Alliance. It has really done a very good job to encourage women into the coffee business. When you look at coffee farmers or coffee processors, most of them are women. When you look at the quality controllers, they say that women are the best coffee testers. Why? Because they're very subjected to spices when they're cooking. They get a lot of flowers from us. So they test a lot of things, ice cream, yogurt, sweets, what. So they are good cup testers. Yes.
So most of them should actually, take opportunity.
I would actually encourage all the female to participate in the coffee business, whether owning a coffee shop, whether analyzing coffee, barista, farming. We really need them.
House of Talent Television. My name is Emmanuel Ateng. In studio is Becca Ali, all the way from the UAE, from Drowsy Coffee. Came over to Uganda. He has been here for 2 weeks doing some research, of which he has already shared with us some of the stuff that he was doing while he was here. He will be going back in the next month or so. Yes, in the next month. So it's good that we caught you before you left. So before we went for the break, we're basically talking about your experience, the research you did. We're talking about baristas and their different qualities and what people need to succeed. And we are now down to the third part of the show, where we basically always get to brew a good cup of coffee. We have people who watch this show just for this part. There's a lot of people in Uganda who want to learn how to make a good cup of coffee, especially in the morning when people are running to work. So I'll just hand over this session to you. There's a lot of apparatus that we have in front of us here. There are those who don't even know what this is. So I'll leave it to you to explain what it is, what we're going to do, and the process basically from this to our cup of coffee that we will be taking.
Yeah, thank you so much. So first of all, this one is called manual brewing. This is Gravity manual brewing. is part of specialty.
Ah.
So we've been talking about specialty. Specialty came and introduced to us manual brewing, 2 methods of brewing. That's the main difference between specialty and commercial.
Yeah.
In specialty cafes, you'll find people, baristas doing manual brewing.
Okay.
In commercial, they'll be doing only machine, espresso machine.
Okay.
That's another method. And this is another method. So we
Okay.
do this one manually. What's the main point of manual brewing? And what is our expectations?
Yeah.
Why do we make manual brewing? What's the difference between this and the normal coffee?
Yeah.
First of all, it's not about making strong coffee, making whatever. No, we can make manual brewed coffee, a very nice one.
Yeah.
What we are looking for is optimum balance.
Okay.
Shouldn't be bitter,
Oh.
shouldn't be too acidic, should be balanced.
Okay.
So someone should drink coffee and enjoy only that.
Yeah.
So I'll be doing a gravity brewing,
Yeah.
and I'm having apparatus of V60.
Okay.
What is V60? What is the mouth feel? What are you expecting from this? Should be light to full body. Though I can make strong, but the taste of this one should be light to medium body.
Okay.
When I go to part of specialty, it means I have to come with other apparatuses to check my coffee.
Okay.
From the TDS, I have to check water quality.
Yeah.
I have to check the soluble yields. I have to see my extraction time. I have to watch everything. There's a lot of variables I have to look for when I'm doing manual brewing.
Okay.
Yeah, the things just variables. And what variables I have to check? What are 7 essential elements of brewing?
Yeah.
There's a lot of rules under this.
Okay.
So I'll not go like very far. I'll just go straight.
All right.
Do it like a home brewing.
Okay.
Not commercial, not special.
Okay.
But at least like
Something
this.
simple you can
Something
do at
simple
home.
like this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not commercial, not specialty.
Okay.
Exactly. Because if I go direct to specialty, means I need a lot of things.
Yeah.
I have to know which origin is this.
Yeah.
This is coffee, but I have to know the origin.
Yeah.
I have to know the TDS of the water we are going to use. I have to know everything.
Yeah.
So I just make home brewing.
Okay.
First of all, what I need to do is to preheat my apparatus.
Yeah.
Why do I need to preheat? I have to keep my apparatus warm.
Yeah.
I have to clean, as I told you. And when you are using paper filter, means you are killing the germs
Yeah.
and you are removing the paper smell.
Okay.
And we are going to use scale, which is Akaya scale. It's very nice,
Yeah.
giving consistent measures.
So in the event that at home I don't have this scale,
You don't have at home.
yeah, what would I do?
By the way, this is allowed to smell on the coffee.
Oh,
It's part of our testing.
Okay.
I mean, part of evaluating coffee. We have 2 methods of
evaluate it.
evaluating coffee. We have olfaction and gustation. So this is olfaction.
Olfaction, yeah.
It's the capacity or action of smelling.
Yeah.
Why do we smell on coffee? 80%. 80%, we perceive 80% from the smell.
Yeah.
So we can evaluate from our coffee from the smell before even we drink.
Okay.
But I'll be using specialty standard.
Okay. So if I don't have a scale and let's say I
Should
measure
be.
and say, okay, let me take
No.
2 spoons and put them there. So
Home
what would be
brewing.
the
That
ratio?
is
now?
your own.
Ah,
Like your own. You can do anything, but when you are following specialty, you have to do everything on specialty. You have to follow the rules.
Okay.
Yes. I'll be using my ratio 1:16.
okay.
I mean 1:15. I'll be getting my ratio 15 as well. 1:15.
Yeah.
I'll get around 225.
Okay.
It's very simple to make. Only the science we need to study.
So everyone at least should have a basic knowledge about
At least.
what they're doing.
And I'll start my first pour over.
Yeah.
For the standard one, I'll be needing 50 in 35 ml, according to my recipe.
Okay. Speaking of recipes, you as Baker Ali,
Yes.
are there certain recipes that you have come up with?
Yes, I have.
Oh.
As I told you, it depends how you find your coffee, because we have different origins. Each origin tastes different.
Yeah.
We cannot brew Uganda the way how we brew Brazil or Colombia or Ethiopia.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, in your perspective, speaking of all these coffee brewing nations, okay, in Africa, Ethiopia is seen as the #1, right?
Yes.
Then you have Brazil and Colombia, and I believe that you've had a taste of coffee from all these nations. Okay?
I've tasted a lot of coffee.
Yes. So,
Yes.
According to you, which nation in the world has the best coffee?
We don't judge by nation.
Okay.
We have what we call cup of excellence.
Ah.
So there's cup of excellence by either variety or by region.
Okay.
Even in Uganda here, we have some coffees. We have coffee from different regions. Coffee from Mbale is not tasting like from Rwenzori Mountains or from Kasese or from whatever. It's different, but we judge coffee according to either varieties or the way how it was processed.
Okay.
Yes, but you cannot say this coffee maybe from Ethiopia is very good. No. No, it depends on the way how it was processed.
Okay.
And the variety.
All right.
Yes.
So which country has a better variety than the rest?
Currently, we have the one variety. Just a minute, I don't want to skip my ratio.
Okay.
Okay, that's done. Currently, there's one variety which is trending a lot and people like it a lot. It's called Geisha.
Geisha?
Geisha.
Is that from Japan?
No.
It's a Japanese word.
Panama.
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 Okay.
Geisha is a village in Ethiopia.
Okay.
They are the first one to grow that variety, the Geisha beans, but didn't like work out well. Then they transferred to Panama. And in Panama is doing very well, very, very well, and it's very expensive on market. You can find 1 cup of Panama Geisha around 100K here.
That's a small cup.
Small cup. Yes, because of the variety. It's very good by variety, not by coffee beans or not by the way how it was brewed. No, by variety.
By variety.
Yes, and it's sold always on auction.
Okay.
Yeah, they book, they make auction. We need this variety, this volume, whatever, like that. So we evaluate by variety or by the way how it was processed. We have a lot of processes. Before we have only around like the common one around 4: natural process, washed process, honey process, carbonic macellation. Now they added a lot of processes.
Okay.
And when you start to study about coffee, means you are going to study about all processes. And as a barista, before you start brewing your coffee, you have to know which variety is this, which process, how was it processed. So to like is guiding you to do a proper cup of coffee. Not only making coffee and leave it there, no. You have to know everything as a barista.
Okay.
Yes.
So what can we do as the Ugandan industry, coffee industry, to get our coffee varieties to that place like the one in Panama? And what are we not doing in that respect that hasn't allowed us to get to that level?
To give it time to educate farmers, we need to educate farmers about green bean sustainability. Yes, we need to educate farmers. We need to educate producers as well, so that we get cup of excellence, so that we get like good quality. Yes. And to avoid these quick things, you know, some people, they need quick money. They don't take long process. We know some process, they take long, like natural process will take long time to get dry. But if you want something nice, give it time, wait. Yes.
So the Ugandan thing is always try and get quick money from whatever you're doing. So I believe maybe that's one of the issues why we haven't. So this is ready. So I was saying that in Uganda we want quick things, quick money, kamane here, kamane there.
Yes.
And I think maybe that's why not only the coffee industry but other industries have also
even other industries
failed to grow.
One day, second day, they want money.
You want something out of it. Okay. Away from that, I was still going through your article in the magazine, and I realized that you went for a competition, okay? And just want us to what competition was this? How did you fare in the competition? You know, did you get any certificates? You know, what about that competition?
It was Airpress Championship.
Okay.
To happen in when? Last month in October.
Yeah.
DMCC Coffee Center in Dubai.
Oh.
Good enough. I participated to semi-finals. I didn't complete, but at least I reached to the level where everyone is saying, mashallah, at least you are there. Yeah, on the stage. Wasn't easy and wasn't so difficult, but a lot of guys participated. No one they didn't complete. But few of us managed to go to the stage, to the final stage, until when they choose people who went to Italy for finals.
Well, I mean, just being on that stage was a very big thing, I believe, and congratulations.
Thank you so much
on that part. So, what's the future for you? I know that right now you're quality controller, you've been a barista, but where do you see yourself in the next 5 years when in respect to coffee?
Still studying. I can say that. Still studying, still going ahead. Because now my aims, I'm focusing into roastery pad.
Okay.
Yes, I'm focusing into roastery pad. I've done all this barista. I've done a lot of coffee sampling, coffee cupping, whatever. Now I'm focusing on roasting.
Okay.
Yes. So and I know roasting is a very big part. Yes.
But I think it's something you're really passionate about.
Yes.
Okay. As we draw towards the close of the show, I know that there are baristas out there. I know that there are different people who are watching the show.
We have to test our coffee before we go further. Because it's now on holding temperature.
Okay. Yeah. So as we get there, I know that there are people out there who, especially because of the lockdown that came, because of the COVID situation, there are students who are actually not back in school. There are other people who lost their jobs, okay? And they're looking for what to do. And I believe that the coffee industry at this point actually offers a way out for them, okay? Because, I mean, people won't stop taking coffee. People will take coffee, okay? Farmers will continue to produce coffee, all right? So I just want you to look into that camera and just tell someone out there, okay? Encourage them to get into the coffee industry, and why should they get into the coffee industry?
Well, guys, coffee industry is very wide, it's very big, it's very full of opportunities. Don't sit there and say, I have nothing to do. You can join the industry. You can get whatever you want. If you give it time, invest in it. By giving it time, don't look for money. Don't look for big salary at first. First learn. After learning, you'll get how much amount you need. In coffee industry, there's no barista should get this amount of money. No, it depends on your knowledge. What you know is what you get. You cannot be having junior experience and asking for experienced one. No. You can join now. Good thing. Everything is simple. It's easy. Don't sit there and say, oh no, I'm scared to join this. No, it's very simple. You can make. Yeah, it's very simple. It's not so difficult. Simple, very simple, very enjoyable. You can do everything when you're enjoying. You can do your coffee. You can serve your customers. Coffee create friendship. Coffee gives you a job. Even if you are not working in a cafe, maybe you can go in different field, but still in coffee industry. Yes.
Interesting. You heard it there from Mr. Baker Ali. But before we go, there is an issue that we have been talking about, not only in the show, but generally. Being a barista is predominantly seen as a place for men. Okay, there are very few ladies who take up, being a barista, and we've tried to have them on the show here. We had one, Swabra Banks. I don't know if you've met her, and we just wanted to encourage the ladies out there, okay? Because we had a barista who told us that when it comes to quality control, it's better to have a woman because their sense of smell is better. When it comes, to that, okay? So just encourage the ladies out there.
They add also some special techniques. We don't know how they do their things. It's very good. Actually, apparently, when you see in coffee industry. Now a lot of girls, and they like them a lot, who are doing coffees. And you see all competition happen since from June. All winners are ladies, girls.
Yeah.
Seriously, girls, all girls, means they have engaged a lot in coffee.
Yeah.
They give like maximum attention to coffee. They have good taste. They have good taste. They know how to brew coffee. They can predict what is coming than boys. For boys, maybe you can do something, say, oh, maybe it will be like this. But if a girl predicts exactly the same thing, yes.
So the ladies should actually in Uganda.
Yes, should engage in coffee.
Yeah.
Seriously, it's very nice.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it there from Baker Ali, who came down from the UAE, works for Drowsy Coffee, and he came down to do some research, of which we have been sharing on the show. We have brewed our good cup of coffee. It's time for us to say bye until the next time. Thank you for watching the Coffee Break Show on House of Talent Television. Remember, you can always catch us on our Facebook, our YouTube, and also on Twitter. Make sure to share the show far and wide. It has been me, Emmanuel Ateng, on the Coffee Break Show, House of Talent Television. Have a good day wherever you are in the world.
Thank you.
People at the moment are struggling to understand the older generation because times have changed. Technology has come in.
They've moved on.
Yes.
We're the ones sitting back and wondering, what is my child on to? TikTok has surpassed WhatsApp. The other one I call, I never call it Facebook, it's Bookface. Why are you on Bookface? Dad, it's Facebook.
Yes.
Me, I keep saying, I have a foot amongst the millennials.
Yeah.
And I understand the traditionalists.
Okay.
There's a song in the 60s, by the way, and the 90s, 70s, where they're like, parents don't understand.
Yes.
Remember Prince?
Yes.
Final games coming to an end. We're waiting for the playoffs, and from nothing at the beginning of the year to a lot of basketball towards the end of the year. Today, with me to discuss is the coach of Livingstone Basketball Club, based in Makerere University, Mr. Eric Matovu. Very welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mr. Eti.
Yeah, it's very good to have you here.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
I know that coaches have a very busy schedule, standing in the sun from morning
I know.
and all these things, but thank you for coming through.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Mr. Eti.
Every time we call coaches, I know that sometimes you have busy schedules, but just taking off time to come and discuss the game of basketball and the development of the game in Uganda is a very good thing. Going through your profile, I know that before, you ended up with the Livingstone Basketball Club.
Yeah, true.
You were coaching the Lioness, that's the girls.
Yeah.
You also coached Watoto.
Yes,
I also know that you have a basketball academy that you're working with. So your life is basically filled with basketball. So you wake up, eat, sleep,
we live and breathe basketball.
So outside basketball, right? Is there any other job you do, or it's 100%?
I think it is 100% basketball. I'm a teacher.
Okay.
I'm a teacher at British School of Kampala, and I'm a PE teacher.
Yeah.
So apart from that, also another job that I do is, it's a full-time job. I'm
Yeah.
a married man.
Yeah.
So I call it a full-time job. I'm so proud of it. So I think basically that is it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So growing up, did you ever think, you know what, this is what I want to do with my life? Because I know that our parents tell us, you know, you have to be a doctor, you have to be a lawyer, and then you ended up somewhere being a basketball coach, which in Uganda is not seen as a very serious thing.
Absolutely.
You know, so what was it like for you growing up? What did you think you'd actually become?
I dreamt of being a pilot.
Yeah.
And that's why I did MEG at A level. Ended up doing a lot of accounts.
Yeah.
I'm an accountant. But you see, this world will push you to ends that you won't even think of.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I chose my passion, and I'm pursuing it passionately.
Yeah.
So we live and breathe basketball, and it's what we're doing. That is what is bringing bread on the table.
Yeah.
To me, I'm enjoying it.
Yeah.
It is so nice. It is so nice.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So, talking about your basketball journey, you've coached a couple of teams, especially in the lower divisions. What was your experience like? What was your first experience coaching? Yeah. I remember my first experience was they just threw me out there in the deep end and said, that's the team you're coaching. And I had very little knowledge about basketball. At that time, I was just more of a player, not a coach. But I had to learn really quick, you know, how to become a coach and a player at the same time, you know. So how was it for you? How did you end up? Where was that start of your coaching career?
Oh, I started with matching the shooters, and to be honest with you, I built them from scratch. And up to first division, we worked with Roger Seronyugo, and we brought it up. But to be honest, it was a roller coaster. It is a whole lot of learning. You know, when you start to coach. And I believe basically that it is you, the coach, who learns more, even the players that you're coaching, more than the players that you're coaching. So it really humbled me, and it made me become a man. You know, I usually tell my players that, you know what, if you want to be the greatest player out there, you've got to behave like a servant. If you don't have humility with you, and you don't have the discipline to push you, you cannot go any far. Those are the things that will push you. I tell them, I usually use one phrase, that you see all these accolades, the degrees, the profiles that you have in life, you know, they will take you somewhere. But can they sustain you there? I don't think so. So it is your character at the end of the day that is going to sustain you in that place. I always tell them, you know what, if I call for a training session and I tell you be in at 3 or 4, why don't you be there earlier, 15 minutes to time or 30 minutes to time, and the coach finds you when you are good to go. You are ready. You put in some work already. That shows that you know what you want in life. So it is a very, very learning experience, Mr. Eti. It humbles you, and it makes you become a leader in life.
Interesting. So it's always exciting to know the journey of a coach, where they started from and where they are now. And every coach has their own philosophy. You know, some maybe you copied from someone else, but what has been your coaching philosophy throughout this time that has carried you basically to this much success? Because different coaches have different philosophies. So what is that philosophy for you as a coach?
Me as a coach, my philosophy is literally, you know, a mixture of very many. I'll look at very many coaches. I'll look at very many coaches from the university. I'll look at the Mortens. I'll look at very many coaches abroad. I'll look at Phil Jackson. I'll look at this one. I'll look at this one. Then I'll come up with my own. I won't say that I have a definite philosophy, because I mean different players react differently to different philosophies. You may carry a philosophy, but it won't work for certain players. So you have to adjust as a coach. You have to know who your players are. What are they able to pull up and do? You won't say, I'm so rigid that this is me, my philosophy is I only play a transitional game. A transitional game, and that is what I'm going to do. So you find players who cannot run. So what are you going to do? But they are very good on the ball, but they can't run, they're not athletic. So won't your philosophy change? So I'm a combination of very many different philosophies from different coaches, and I usually execute my philosophy according to the players that I have in that structure or in that program at a particular time.
So speaking of coaching, the coaching fraternity in Uganda has always had a lot of pressure on them. We've had FIBA instructors coming in to take coaches through certain clinics here and there, but it's never really more than a month. Okay, and I believe that you can't really learn everything about, you know, coaching basketball within a month. Okay, and in some instances, people say that our coaches are not that good, we're not that experienced. Take an example of the Silverbacks. We had to go outside Uganda to get 2 coaches to come and help with the national team. Okay, so what's your comment on coach development? Okay, we'll talk about player development later, but coach development in Uganda, where are we lacking, and what do we need to do to make better coaches actually in the country, so that we can grow this game of basketball?
I think we are somewhere right now. I think we have very many coaches that are really experienced. I'll be honest with you, and I believe we do even have coaches that have reached the level 3 of FIBA, not per se on level 1 or level 2. They have a lot of experience, but it's just because of the structures that have been in place. The structures have not were not on our side to be there and exposed and get these certifications and all the things. But I can assure you, Mr. Eti, that we have very many coaches that are really doing a very tremendous job out there. Very many coaches. When you look at the time they're putting in, the resources that are available on the table for them to execute whatever they're doing, I think we are somewhere. I'm just curious if we had the same resources like people abroad, I think would be far. People are so passionate about this game. People love this game. They literally do basketball a lot. So at the end of the day, there isn't so much difference between them and us right now. Honestly, I don't believe even that we should be jumping so much on players from abroad and all that. The players here can do the job. They can do the job. It's just because maybe we're getting a little bit ambitious and all that. But what I know is with time, even our players, homegrown players, we're going to be having them on the national team and they'll be representing like 90%. 90%. So we have very many good players. Very many players are coming through, and it's a good job that they're doing.
So during the time of the Silverbacks, when they were playing the tournaments in Rwanda at the AfroBasket, there was a group of people that believed that we should actually have only homegrown talent on the Silverbacks team. And yet others were of the view that it's okay to bring players from outside. Okay, some of them, if they're actually Ugandan, some who are naturalized. Okay, so which camp were you in?
I would say I'm Ugandan a little bit, even myself, but the dynamics change, Mr. Eti. When you look at the players that are coming in, who are playing from abroad, the Ishmael, the Opongos, the Wad, I think they added a lot of value to our team. Let's be honest. But it doesn't mean that we won't get there, even homegrown talent. There. But you look at the confidence, the way they were playing and all that, they added a lot of value on our team. So we can't take it for granted. We still needed them. We do. It was a very good addition to have them.
Yes, backtrack a bit, still talking about coaches. You do realize that in Uganda right now, if I'm to say, there are about 3 female coaches and only 1 in the NBL. Coach Mavita. So do we have a situation whereby there is we're not encouraging the ladies enough to get into coaching, or the ladies just don't want to get into coaching because of certain issues here and there? Some people say that ladies do not want to get into coaching because the emotional side takes the best of them.
Because they're driven by intuition all the time, that's what we're saying. But the truth be told, I'll be honest with you, I think the ladies have been laid back so much. They've been given chances. I mean, even National Council of Sports calls for very many ladies courses, and they've been given chances even to improve their administration skills and all the things. But when you honestly, they should be also fighting for the same plate that we are on, also eating from. It's just because, and we have very many who have played the game. But you see, most of them, the moment they go into other institutions like marriages and all that, they tend to be caught up so much, and they won't have the freedom that we have. Most of us, we can juggle here and there, but the ladies, most of the time, realize that, you know what, there is so much on their plate. They have to do this, they have to do that. That's why most of the time they don't evolve in the game like how we are evolving in the game. Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
But given more resources, given more structures, more encouragement, and from the federation, you see the federation is also trying, it's doing its part. So I think we'll have the numbers. We'll do have the numbers, absolutely.
Speaking of the federation, I actually wanted to jump there next. For the whole year, actually, on this show, okay, we've been trying to analyze the different problems that the federation has, okay, and one of the biggest issues we saw was the issue of finances, because if you look at the campaign of the Silverbacks, you know, the qualifications for AfroBasket, then the saga that happened with them in Rwanda, where they didn't have enough finances to even pay for, you know, the hotels, okay, so according to you, you've been in Ugandan basketball for a while. You know, I know that you have a perspective that you need to give. You have a different kind of analysis. What are some of those problems that you see FUBA as a federation is facing in Uganda, and why have we really failed to develop that much as other nations in Africa? Yet, we have actually one of the best leagues in the African region. Okay, so what are some of those problems that FUBA has that has limited the growth of basketball in Uganda?
I think if we do not nail down a concrete sponsorship package, I think that is where all our problems are starting from. I remember way back we used to have MTN, and they could give us jerseys and you know, this airtime. Remember those days, when you used to play for that airtime, that passion, you know, playing for that airtime. You know, it was a small package, but it was coming in. And then, you know, Airtel comes in and everything changes. Then we start to miss out the jerseys and everything. So I think we need a concrete sponsorship. I think all our problems are starting from the finances bit. So if FUBA can get some sponsorship, then I think our league will be the best in Africa.
Way better.
Will be way better.
Yeah, but I mean, one can argue that we actually had sponsors. There's a time MTN was on board. There's a time Tascalite was on board. We had Airtel on board at a certain point, you know, but we ended up losing, you know, all these sponsors. And right now, I think the game of basketball actually does not have a sponsor. Apart from the last year's playoffs where UAP came and actually sponsored the playoffs. Apart from that, you know, we lost all the sponsors.
Absolutely.
Okay, so
and it's affecting us, especially us who are dealing in the lower league a lot. It is really so hard on the people running these teams, the managers and everyone. They have to meet here, chip in for transport for players, you know, allowances and all that. It is really a hassle. So we need sponsorship in the lower division. So that, you know, it's the feeder. It's the feeder system to the NBL. There's no way that NBL is ever going to survive without the lower league. So we need sponsorship there. I don't know what FUBA is going to do, but they need to get this going very soon.
Okay.
And really.
You are watching the Slam Dunk Basketball Talk on House of Talent Television. My name is Ateng Emmanuel. With me in the studio is Mr. Eric Matovu, the head coach of Livingstone Basketball Club, and we're talking basketball in Uganda, especially with the lower division league. We'll get back after this break to talk more about basketball. Don't go anywhere. This is House of Talent Television, the Slam Dunk Basketball Talk Show.
Believe in your skill and your potential to be a good player, because I know there were times when I didn't think I could do it and I wanted to give up, but then my dad, you know, he was there, he pushed me, he would wake me up for training in the morning. When the last day before I had, you know, shots weren't dropping, you know, you just need to have, and you need to have that self-drive, but you also need to have support. So seek for support from your parents. Don't be shy to bring up the idea of, you know, can I go for training today, or maybe can I get a basketball and be dribbling, because you need to be able to not make excuses for yourself. That's a thing that a lot of people subconsciously do. They're like, well, I don't have a court at home, so I can't do anything. But you can get a basketball and learn to dribble, you know. Then when you actually are able to access a court, you'll have a starting point, you know. And also to, you know, just if you love something, give it your all. Because I know there was a time when I played basketball, but I didn't love it, so I was just, you know, going with the flow, not really, I didn't have any sense of direction, I didn't have any goal. But when I started setting goals for myself and actively trying to reach them, that's when I actually started seeing results, like with the national team. I set that as a goal, and you know, it paid off when I got to play, and also the Kenya camp. Because the second I came back from Cairo, you know, I was sleeping one morning, I had slept, I'd come back, it was the second day I'd been back. I hear a knock at my door, it's my dad. Get up, coach is coming in 30 minutes, be ready. You know, you have to be able to do that for yourself, or have someone who's willing to do that for you. And you know, just look for opportunities to play. If I know there's like a lot of people who can't, you know, it's not as simple as just waking up, you know, getting a driver to take you somewhere. But you know, look around. Maybe your area there's like a place you can go for pickup. Maybe you can borrow someone's ball. You know, just if you want it enough, you'll be able to put in the work. Yeah.
Welcome back to the Slam Dunk Basketball Talk Show on House of Talent Television. My name is Atengi Manuel. We're talking basketball in Uganda, especially the lower division league and what is happening there. But remember, today the Invite Tournament by Power Basketball Club is on. And I think, 2 o'clock, games have already started. You can head down to the YMCA, but make sure that you've been tested for coronavirus, because if there's an issue there, you'll not be allowed to enter into the games. We are observing all the SOPs so that we can allow the game of basketball to continue in the country. With me in the studio is Mr. Eric Matovu, the head coach of Livingston Basketball Club. And before we went off for the break, we're talking about different issues that are facing FUBA, and we're talking about the financial issue, which has really plagued us for a very long time. Before the league was cut short twice, this year already, because of the pandemic, FUBA had a plan to televise the games on FUBA TV, and we were given the promise that every game shall be televised, and we shall be able to catch it from the comfort of our living room or wherever you are. But that did not materialize. We had about 1 or 2, 3 games that were actually shown to us. How important is media when it comes to basketball? Let it be photography, let it be videography, let it be social media, And how can we use the same to grow the game of basketball?
So much. The media is the game changer. Without media, we cannot do anything. Absolutely. How are these players going to be scouted if there's no media? How will the higher teams see the players from the lower teams and scout them and say, this is the player that I really want? So at the end of the day, the media is the game changer. We need to invite them on board. They need to be there. They need to be there for the lower league so that we can give the lower league a lot of mileage. I'll speak in terms of the lower league. The lower league needs to have exposure. Some people don't even know that it exists. They only know NBL teams. When you ask a person, you know what, do you know about this so and so team? Which team? They only know about Falcons and City Oilers and Power and so. But why? These are also teams, and they really have good players in there. And there is a lot of good basketball going on in the lower league. But you can even ask very many people, when is the last time that you watched a game in the lower league? I see very many coaches, they're not even interested in watching the games in the lower league. Why? How can you develop a game of basketball and you're saying you're a coach, but you don't have time to go down there and look at the talent that is down there? So at the end of the day, we need the game changer, and that is the media. That is the way to go. And I would recommend that you guys are doing a tremendous job.
Thank you very much.
House of Talent. That's the way to go. That's the way to
Thank you very much. On the same note, yesterday, news came out that one of the TV stations in Uganda is going to be broadcasting, the games live come next season. And this is a promise that we've actually had for a couple of years.
We've had them before.
Yes, I was on social media and someone said it's been 12 years we've been given the same promise, but this has never happened. Do you think this will change, or we're just, in the same boat? And
maybe, I've seen it cuts across in every sport. I don't know how many times even the Football League has been promised the same thing on DSTV, and then they usually even transport and shift the equipment right here from South Africa, and they bring it here, and it doesn't even materialize. So there's a lot of dynamics that are involved in this. Hope we can come to a mutual agreement, and then all the players that are involved in this can come to a mutual agreement, and then we work this out, because we need our game to develop. People are being scouted from other countries, and they're playing professional in Europe, everywhere. What about us? We have a lot going on. There is a lot of talent, a lot of potential in Uganda, Mr. Iti. But it's it's not exposed. But this is going to give us a lot of mileage. Just imagine you found a player on YouTube and you're watching him and you say, oh, look at their technical aspect of the game. I think they're really good. It's in terms of profiling, it gives a lot of mileage even to the people who are going to take them on for scholarships and all the things. So we really need this.
Speaking of the same, we've talked about how, you know, we lost sponsorship from FUBA. We've talked about the media aspect and how important it is for our game of basketball. But I think one of the reasons that we actually lost when it came to sponsorship is that it reached a point where the game was not marketable. Okay, rugby took over and took most of the sponsors because it had that marketable aspect about it. Okay, so according to you, and speaking on behalf of the lower division, how can we make the game of basketball more marketable, you know, more visible to